Hello, everyone. This video is a little bit different than some of my others. It is a live stream, or it is lightly edited from a live stream I did with Bblum, where we talked about OP and sort of one of the foundational OP builds. It's going to be the first in a series, and I think I'll put them all up here as regular videos for people to watch later, because I thought this was a really good stream and people enjoy it. I've tried to edit out some of the annoying streaming bits so you can be more on our conversation, though you'll see us responding to chat from time to time. So hope you enjoy, and thanks for watching. Thank you all for coming out, and a huge thank you to my guest today, Bblum, for coming on the stream. We're here to talk about, oh yes, everyone's absolute favorite ID, or at least our favorite ID, on the corp side in op super heavy logistics. But before we talk about that, boy, there goes my voice right as the stream starts. Bblum, do you want to quickly say hello and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name's Ben, or Bblum, or Ben Durance. All various handles and names I've gone by. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a player from Pittsburgh. I've been playing Netrunner since like 2012. My history with OB, I guess a way that I would like to explain it is that kind of like I played a lot of Blue Sun back when Blue Sun was in the like in the 2015, 2016 meta. Blue Sun Glacier was like kind of a tier 1.5 deck, but always like just a little bit on everybody's radar. And I was infamous for being like the only person who ever played Wayland without putting Scorched Earth in their deck. So there was that. And like, yeah, Blue Sun Glacier was like a really decision dense deck, even though it doesn't have like search on its identity ability. It still like gives you a decision about every card that's on your board at the start of your turn. And so the lines were really intricate. And then when Null Signal printed OB, I got really excited because I was like, this is like the same decision density, but in a tempo positive ability instead of in a tempo negative ability, which is much more suitable to the metagame that Null Signal is trying to push. So I've been playing Rush OB since last year. It's 2024, so actually I should say 2 years ago. Back then, I played Skunkworks Formicary combo, and I also played Special Offer, and since rotation, Special Offer and Sapper were the only two cards that the deck lost. And Sapper is not a big deal, but Special Offer kind of has been a massive change to the deck and like the pacing and the way that the deck operates. And kind of there have been a number of different directions that the build can go, with that kind of obvious card choice taken away. And so people have been going in a lot of different directions. Like not with filling in the one slot like itself, but with like what combination of win conditions to play. I guess we're gonna get into this more in the stream, and I'm talking too much now.
No, it's all good.
So thanks for having me on, Jeff. And that's me.
We had talked, and we're hoping that this could be a like successful enough thing that we can do a couple of different episodes on this, because I think there's a lot to talk about in OB. I think it's really important to point out you mentioned that you've been playing kind of Rush OB, and I think that's like an important distinction. It's kind of an interesting place where when people read this ID ability, one of the first things that often comes to mind is like, okay, what combos can I make by having a tutor for exactly what I need in my deck? Like that's one of the obvious places you might want to go. But I think it's been, probably it's just off of the back of Border Control, really, that like the Rush Ob archetype exists. But Border Control isn't enough. Like you need other cards to support it. And Special Offer was a really good include in the previous rotation. But I think it's interesting to see how many different ways people have said, okay, how am I actually going to try and win the game with this kind of aggressive rush deck, and where they take it, because it's I've always thought of OB as a rush deck that has this sort of tempo game plan, but it depends a lot about what ice you end up choosing to put in your deck and what problems you're trying to solve. Um,
Yeah,
I
I meant to segue into this topic when I mentioned that I was the only player who didn't put Scorched Earth in their deck, and then I forgot, so thank you. Um, there are, of course, like the Urban Renewal ob decks. Those are different decks, and we're not gonna like go into depth on them on this stream, on this series. Uh, but I guess like on this topic, the like kind of kernel of deck building philosophy that I would like to put out in the open here is that I have always like been a big believer in building Netrunner decks where every card you draw is good and you want to play it. Um, and not like ending up in situations where like the runner puts a certain tech card on the table and suddenly half of your game plan is blank. Um, and like, you know, back in the old days, like they'd put a Plascrete and all of your Scorches would be blank, and that's kind of obvious. And nowadays it's a little bit more nuanced because No Signal has been printing nuanced tech cards. But in a rush deck, yeah, like every card you draw is good, with the exception of Half Rune, which we'll get into later.
I figured maybe we should start talking to this. To me, is sort of the like this is a develop. I don't want to like completely credit myself with like I didn't invent the Rush-Ob archetype, but I think like I do think my Bathtub Water was like a good example of an early Rush-Ob. But I think this is a really good place for us to start with kind of the ob you're talking about at Worlds, and maybe we can start about talking about what the key, what kind of you feel like the core elements are in this style of build, and kind of just put that a bit in as the foundation.
Sure.
Because I yeah,
Let
there's
me
you have
tangent first briefly,
of course, yeah,
which is to say that if you want to talk about who invented this archetype, you got to go back to 2022.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of 2022, a further tangent, but you mentioned that like it's a tempo build, and I think something that's interesting to highlight is back then the key card you were trying to tempo out was endurance, and so you needed to play 3 envelopments to like drag them through envelopment and sap their boat counters. Um, and now runners have a lot of different rig plans, and not that I want to talk about like whether 2 or 3 envelopment is correct, but like in terms of your win condition, like it's no longer just dragging through envelopment. It's now like I need to trash their programs with Stavrune, with Trojan Horse, with SDS, or I need to tax out their credits with Managarum Formicary, or I just need to go under them with triple Audacity in the deck. So those are kind of the 3 major win conditions that I see. Triple Audacity plus calibration testing.
Yeah, no, I think that's the like a really nice way of summarizing like okay, we no longer just win by resing 1 or 2 envelopments over the course of the game because runners are able to handle that. But
Right.
so we need to come up with some other way of doing it. And so to me this was like one of the ways that showed to be doable earlier in the meta, which was playing kind of Managarm Skunkworks as a way to leverage and get a little bit more pressure on the remote, and then so that's almost like one kind of I wish found a good way to do visualizations, right? Like you could have one branch of the family tree is like this Managarm's Skunkworks version, and I think it's probably worth mentioning one of the reasons you look at Managarm Skunkworks is actually because of Virus, which like is one of these like kind of quiet glue cards for the deck where most runners are playing some amount of viruses that you would love to be able to purge, and then also being able to have extra copies of all of your 2-cost cards is a really big deal for the deck, because I think the release of the Automata initiative brought what I think is like one of the most fun cards to add to this archetype, which is Tucana. Though I don't, yeah, which I think is like one of the things that's kind of brought this deck. I gave it some extra legs, I think, post last rotation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like Tucana kind of fills in the positive tempo void that Special Offer left to me, without even spending influence. The other really important thing about Mavirus is you don't have to decide what it becomes until either the runner forces you and spends all their money, or you're scoring. So you can just go Agenda Mavirus, and that can become a Tucana later, or it can become a Skunkworks if the runner runs. And the other thing, this deck in particular, the build with 2 Skunkworks in it, the unique thing that this deck does is it has Skunkworks on every central server on demand on the last turn of the game.
Yeah.
You just put in a virus and you have your first Skunkworks rezzed in the remote, and you get a second Skunkworks like anywhere. And it's really just a last turn of the game thing, but like that really saves games. What that does is that saves games where you go down like 0-4 on centrals in the early game, which is a known problem with this archetype because you under ice your centrals. And that trick, like on the last turn of the game, kind of pulls it out. Whereas other decks aren't really doing that. And I think you can trash programs as an arguable other win condition to substitute for that. But I don't really think that you can argue like, oh, I'll just play Audacity 4 times. Because it doesn't fix the problem where if you just get unlucky on centrals, you're not able to lock them out later.
Yeah, so I think it's maybe going back to key cards in the deck, like the things that I think no, it's all good. It's all good. It's a very nice little so Extract, I think, obviously is another, like, this is maybe the most busted econ card printed in the last couple of sets, though it is like so archetype specific that it's probably okay.
I actually I had an idea like 30 minutes ago. One good way to answer the question you posed earlier might be just pull up the deck builder and we'll build like a 35 card deck that I see as kind of like the skeleton.
Yeah, that seems actually like a great way to get started. And probably a good way to kind of guide this discussion. Because to me, it's like, okay, what are the first couple of cards that I put in literally every single op list? And it's like, we've talked about Extract. We're always going to play 3 of these. I'll put 2 Maviruses in because I feel like you don't want to be playing fewer than that. Border Control, I think, is always a 3 of, though I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Facet Ob maybe doesn't. No, it does. Okay. Cool.
I don't even know what 3s it's getting, but sure.
Yeah, I don't either, but presumably they found something. Okay. Now I'm trying to think, like, oh yes, and then Tucana, I think, is a 2 of in most of these.
3 Sandstone. So that's what it's getting.
Ah, yeah. I'm a big fan of the 3 Sandstone, but I think
I am also on 3 Sandstone now. I think that 2 is like the skeleton build.
Yeah,
number.
2 is definitely the skeleton. So I should be doing this as we're talking about things. This is maybe going to be a little bit more as I think about, like, oh yeah, this is going to be, if we're building on the skeleton, this is going to take some time. Sandstone is just really well positioned in the meta with everyone running Cleaver, and honestly, even when they're not running Cleaver, Sandstone is still just a pain to break, and its downside is actually really light when you're already planning on purging 1 to 2 times a game. This ice just becomes like shockingly efficient, and most of the time you're getting this out for free.
The other really compelling reason to run 3 Sandstone for me, and this is a realization that I had after Worlds, is that I think Aziev Protocol is the better 3-2 than Project Atlas. Mm-hmm. And you want to eat a spent Sandstone, turn it into Tucana, and get something else. So just having an extra copy of Sandstone makes it like more sure that you'll have a 3 there.
Yeah. Or
that you'll have that 3 to eat and then get a second 3 out and res quickly in order to threaten half rune in the mid game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like 3 Sandstone for, even my builds where I'm not quite, like, I have not been quite sold on the gospel of Azef yet. But even without that synergy, I find like it is one of the ice I'm always happiest to see. And like if someone puts a Botulus on it, like that's great. I can just extract it for value kind of down the road.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you put in next as your always skeleton? I have like a couple of weird cards, but they're like ones I've evolved into, so I don't know that they're as core skeleton pieces.
So I did this thought exercise 30 minutes ago,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
so I actually have the whole skeleton in my head.
Fantastic.
So I can recite it if you want, but I thought I might let you talk first.
Sure. I mean, okay. I think one Audacity is pretty much locked in
I agree.
for basically every build. Just having some. So this is one of the things we wanted to talk about as like op is an unusual ID that does actually want to include a couple instead of just being a single win condition deck, which is what like what I would recommend every new player does is like build your deck to do the one thing. Op gets away with doing two things in a way that's unusual for every other ID in Netrunner. And so Audacity is
Yeah.
like the core of like, well, one way I can win is fast advancing out the final 2 points, which is a big one. Um, and Dave, just quickly, all of my streams do get saved on YouTube, though I don't think they're going to be that well publicized. I'm hoping to be able to just edit this quickly and turn it into like a proper YouTube video where I cut out chatting to the stream or wait times and things. But yes, the plan is to make this an available thing. So
Yeah, I think this would be a great resource to have for posterity.
yeah,
Get more intermediate players excited to play this archetype. Because just like, I mean, there's a lot of players that, yeah, there's a lot of intermediate players that say like, oh, Ob is too big brained for me. And
yeah,
like, I understand where that's coming from. But for me, when I sit down at the table and I play Ob, like the way that I think about playing the deck is just kind of so automatic that
yeah.
I don't get overwhelmed with the decisions when I'm actually playing it. And I would like to convey that intuition as part of this series.
Yeah, I think that's actually that's kind of my key takeaway point for this too. Is like for people that are newer, like the deck is you get a lot of I like to think of it like you have a lot of nuanced expression. Like you have a lot of ways that you can make decisions, but a lot of those end up getting made also just in the deck building phase, as we're going to talk about this kind of skeleton that we build out. But once you're actually in the game, like your cards often are pulling you to do a particular line of action. And after a couple of games, you kind of learn some of your patterns that will take you really far. Okay, things that are automatic. Rashida Jaheim goes in every deck, goes in really well.
Yes.
Probably 3 spin doctors, though I've certainly been tempted at times to look at only 2. I think you kind of do need the flood management and even just the positive tempo of selling a 1 coster.
I tested for about a week before Worlds. I tried to cut a 2 influence card and a spin doctor to fit an MCA austerity policy.
Mm,
Just because I was so worried about the 1 cost slot. And
yeah.
every game I played, it was just like, I need the 3rd spin doctor. I
Yeah, yeah.
because like PD builds sometimes play 2 spin,
Yeah.
but PD is faster than Ob, and like you just need that 3rd spin doctor against Issa if nobody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing was just like you need to bring back your most annoying cards like
Yes.
so much. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
just
funny.
not
It's like
negotiable.
this is. I've definitely seen some people be like, "Oh yeah, there are decks that like wouldn't want to run Jackson Howard right now because they want the positive tempo on resing the Spin Doctor." But like to me, like in this list, if I could trade the Spin Doctors for a Jackson Howard, like I would do it in a heartbeat. Because getting just a few extra tools back in feels like it makes such a big difference in this style of deck.
Yeah, the shuffle slots are really pressured.
Yeah. Okay. Other things
What's
that
the
are
last asset? There's one more asset that's a must-have.
yeah. So that's the Regolith mining license.
Mhm.
This is one of those like it is definitively a must-have in the list, but also one of those cards where I'm like, I would love to see something printed that could displace the slot. But having like the deck runs really light on econ. I think it has basically 2 to 3 more like dedicated econ cards, and then there's some in your agenda suite depending on how you build it, which is a really thin margin of econ. And so being able to like sell, as you talked about, like sell and extract, and then get a econ card on the board is a huge deal. I don't think I've ever. Well, okay, no, that's true. I think I have purged from a virus to grab a regolith, but that virus had been res for other reasons at a different point. I think it had been like fetch with a border control, so I hadn't really paid the 3 to res it. Um,
I
but
actually
yeah.
treat my first Mavirus as a regolith fairly often.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I mean this is a playstyle thing.
Yeah.
Actually, the reason that I do that is because my regolith turns into Malapert, and I really want to have Malapert for as many agenda scores as I can.
Yeah. So
So I try to get that up early.
I think that's actually a really good shot. So I don't think Malapert is like belongs in every single op, every single possible. It's not like one of the core skeleton pieces. Well, okay, I might argue it should be. I don't know that it actually is universally, but it's one of the ones that I've been really liking. Um, and like, yeah, I think that is a good reason to go Regolith. Going into your Malapert is a really powerful play, and it's like one of the ways. It's like one of the true like, oh, I'm actually going up in value as I go down in cost kind of cards. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah,
I would consider this a must-have skeleton card for every build except for the like triple audacity build
yeah,
because it does slow you down by like 2 turns um, to empty the regolith and get it out, and the audacity build doesn't want to slow down that much.
yeah,
But everything else, like the amount of just like card selection that Malapert gives you is incredible. So
yeah.
to me, it's a
So
must-have.
I'm gonna say Malapert cut in all in Audacity build. I'm just gonna. Oops, that's. Can I do? Who knows? Maybe I'll publish this skeleton deck list as a thing for people to build off
I
of.
don't think that you can publish illegal deck lists. I learned this during Thanksgiving.
Oh, I'll have to. I'll talk with the NRDB team and have them write
Yeah.
the custom code as an exception. Um, okay, let's move on. 2 hedge funds is guaranteed. I think 3 is probably guaranteed, but I do see people experimenting around with only running 2.
I've been on 2.
Yeah. Um,
Um, and the reason for that is that when you have 3 extracts, I think of them as like the 4th and 5th copies. And especially when
yeah.
extract can get regolith instead. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with you describing your pattern of like, oh yeah, I'm often using my regolith early for money. Then yeah, like hedge fund is much worse in that scenario. Um, I think the style I play tends to try and be a little bit more aggressive in the first couple of turns, and so I want that hedge fund so I can go hedge fund border control agenda uh, earlier in the game, or like
yeah.
some pattern like that. As just sort of a play style difference.
The matchup I want the 3rd hedge fund for is against criminals when you need to be able to res on centrals while at the same time pressuring the remote.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That is the matchup where you definitely want all 3. Let me think. I'm gonna cheat by having my own deck list up on the other screen.
Sure.
I think like at this point, it's funny. I feel like the agendas. It's hard to say. I think we'll talk about the agendas in a bit because I think you actually have a lot of options with agendas and they vary a lot by archetype. I think cards I'm starting to lean toward. To me, a one of Winchester feels like a pretty much a must-have. But I'm interested to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts
I
on it.
mean, I'm playing it, and
Yeah,
I didn't play it at Worlds. It was probably wrong not to. Um, Whether or not it's like a must-have in the skeleton is a matter of philosophy. I think we can
yeah,
put it in the skeleton.
yeah. I think it's definitely the card that I think is weird to put in the skeleton because it is kind of like a well, nothing breaks us efficiently, so it's the best in slot for that. For just like shutting down runs on HQ, which is a thing that you need to do in some game on some boards. Um, actually quite a few number of boards. But yeah, it's not like as core to the deck in a way as some of these other cards are. So I'm going to take it off for now, and we'll probably put it back in at some later point.
Yeah,
Um,
it's whatever.
yeah, I think so.
It's whatever for this consideration of making the skeleton.
Yeah. You know what? To me, like this is not in every list, but to me, two Stavka is effectively a must in the list.
I agree.
Like we'll talk probably after we've made the skeleton about some of the archetypes and why they um, like go in different directions. But I think the majority of the archetypes view two Stavkas as part of the core threat that the deck puts out, where like on turn midway through the game, you have to be ready to respond to a Stavka potentially blowing up your rig if you contest without having the appropriate tools on the board.
100%. It also, like, even with Halfrune not in the deck, it just does so many skateboard tricks.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about when we get to playing. But the flexibility to use your ability during a run when you don't have a virus, like, there's just so much you can do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is odd, or it's like I don't know. It's one of the fundamentally really cool things with Ob. It's like, yeah, this I often want people to run so I can res my Stavka and trash my own stuff and generate value off of that. Um, okay, I think other core cards from my perspective, like one envelopment is actually pretty core to the deck. I think like again, this is a card that gets cut in the all-in audacity builds for sure. But I think it still has a really like even though runners are better equipped to deal with envelopment, it's still one of the better ice that you can have available to you. Um,
For me, it's part of the like Tucana toolbox. Like when I
yeah,
score an agenda and I think about what to get with Tucana and where, envelopment is one of the cards I'm considering. Like, do I just need to lock down a server for a while?
yeah,
Do you consider one of Halfrune as a core part? I do not. Um, I think if you're not playing the Halfrune, you need a good reason. This is Chris in chat that I'm answering. Um, you need a compelling thing to be spending your influence on instead. Um, I didn't bring it to Worlds. Um, there are other, yeah. I mean, it's not part of the skeleton. That's my answer.
yeah. I also similarly have started playing around with only bringing Hafren to some percentage of my meetups because it really like I think like prior to Worlds, like I never used the half run. Like I literally like it. I came out in basically no situations where I actually needed to have the card in my deck. Um, but what people started doing was saying, "Well, I have to make him have it. Like I just lose if the Stavka half run resolves, but I don't have a better line than saying make him have it. And if I didn't have it, it sometimes lost me the game on the spot." So it's like one of those things that like you often want, but you can find reasons to cut it, and we'll talk about, there's a lot of nuance of how you can go in and build further from here. And where you put
The
your influence is a big
um,
one.
the benchmark of comparison to me is, um, for example, imagine um, imagine a game against Isa or against some other similarly disruptive runner where the game slows down to a point that you have drawn 2/3 of your deck by the time it's kind of late game, right? Um, Imagine like a Stavka has been sabotaged, you've drawn the card that you spend 2 influence on. Would you rather it be a seamless launch? Obviously, given that you've drawn it, you would rather it be a seamless launch. But just kind of from a more abstract consideration, seamless launch is the obvious card to turn it into for me. Um,
Yeah.
and in fact, I think that one seamless launch is part of the skeleton to me, especially for playing the Malapert. Um,
Yeah. I think
and it's
that's
just like, how many more copies do you want?
Yeah, I think a single seamless launch, like, yeah, it's the seamless launch and Malapert are in many sense a paired set where like if you're gonna play one, you should play the other.
Yeah.
And if you can find a way to get two seamless launches, you're extremely happy. I think it's just a very good include in your list. Um, okay,
To
other
me, the
card.
other paired set is Half Rune and Sprint.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's I haven't played Sprint in quite a bit. But it does like it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, if you have the influence, it's actually a really good spend. Um,
I got
yeah,
this idea credit to Muntelbost. They, I think they took 17th at Worlds. We should highlight their list at some point. It's I have some criticisms with it, but the latest
yeah, yeah.
build that I have that we're going to be showing takes a lot of ideas from it. Let me see if I can. Are you getting it, or do you want me to get it?
If you could grab it, that would be great. While
Okay.
I stumble through what I think of as core pieces, because it's really interesting how it's like, yeah, we're at 27. 35 does sound about right. Um, I guess it's the like there is the like calibration. Like it's I'm not a big fan of the calibration testing build because I in part because I think it breaks a lot of what I think of as the core elements of the build. Um,
Go on.
so to me, like one of the cards that I think belong in every build again except is like probably Oaktown. Though I'm actually not sure how many you're on at the moment, if any.
Two to me.
Two to you. Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, two makes sense for like again as long as you're not on. I mean, I think we'll talk about two of the other kind of rush. Like I think both Calicana Zoo and I suspect Facet Ob are probably also not on Oaktown, so maybe it doesn't quite belong in the skeleton. But to me, for the like both your style, which is we'll talk about a little more rig shootery, um, is wants to be on this, and mine that's like Turbo Rush also wants to be on Oaktown because it is a gym that you can install advanced turn one behind a piece of ice, and it kind of doesn't matter what that ice is, you'll still be able to score at turn two. You probably, as I'm learning, want to actually do this a little bit later, um, but uh, but it's still kind of core.
You're right in the Calicana and that sort of build. Yeah, the Oaktowns turn into slash and burns because they're kind of all in on scoring 3/2s.
Yeah,
And if they have extra space in the agenda suite, it's just becoming SDSs that they don't plan on scoring.
yeah,
Um, in the chat, is Oaktown a 3 or a 0 card? To me, the reason this isn't a 3x card is you're not as all in on having it on turn 1 as we were in 2022. Because on 2022, like, if you sit down against Shaper or Hoshiko, you just really want envelopment or border control Oaktown turn 1, because that is a guaranteed score, even if they have both.
yeah.
Unless if they have rigging up, which is a whole story. And if Sokka's watching this, hello, Sokka. um, but yeah, to me, you're not all in on scoring at turn 1.
Yeah.
And the extra advancement requirement means it's a little bit more awkward to score with Tucana now that we have Tucana, because you need that extra click to put the Tucana.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not a 3 of to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think even
Also,
in most of my
go
lists,
on.
like yeah, it's always been a one of just because like you or sorry, a two of because you end up like even the list I've been playing like having a little bit more access to fast advance to actually close out the game is really good. And so there's usually other agendas you want slightly before you actually see your Oaktown. Though you can use it kind of aggressively early with the right draws. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great agenda to score. Actually, okay, here's how I think about it. For my first agenda score, especially if I'm scoring it before getting a regolith and emptying it, like if I'm scoring really early game,
Yeah.
I either want it to be Azief protocol with a Tucana on it, or Oaktown.
Yeah.
And if the Oaktown has a Tucana on it, even better. But that is kind of my benchmark for how positive tempo it needs to be in order to be worth scoring before getting a Regolith out.
Yeah, for me, like the way I've often thought about it is I was often playing a version of this deck where I was trying to have my first agenda be an Atlas with a counter, and Oaktown was the next best thing to an Atlas with a counter. Um, but in the end game, I want to be able to score from hand a lot of the time, or just have that be a more consistent threat. So, like, this was, this still isn't quite as good as Atlas in some board states, though. As I said, I'm like, oh, I use a lot of Atlas counters to go and fetch extracts, um, and so then it kind of is wrapping around to being Oaktown again. Um,
Are we on the Atlas versus Azief question yet?
let's round out the ice of the core ice, because I think there's probably only one or two more kind of core ice, really. Um, well, actually, okay. I was about to say a one of magnet, but I don't think you actually agree with me on that.
I
Um,
do not agree with you.
yeah. So we'll table that one for a little bit. So actually, you know what? To me, maybe even cutting the Oaktown, like to me, this is effectively the skeleton of the list, and you have choices in here. Now, I think you're going to make a case that like Ozef is a 3 of core to the list, um, which, given the way you describe playing, I think makes a lot of sense. Um,
Can we agree that 2 Azief is part of the skeleton?
uh, yes, I've gone like
Okay.
really deep in the tank and gone off of it completely, but I suspect that if I was to actually try and tune that list, it would go back onto it. Um,
So as for ice, there are 2 other must-haves that I am thinking of. Do you want to hear them?
sure, I would say okay. Here's my guess as to what they would be a Horum and
Uh-huh.
an Ice Wall. Um,
Close.
yeah.
It is a Hortum and either an Ice Wall or a Tithe.
Okay. Yeah.
And I prefer the Tithe, but it just needs to be a 1-cost ice.
Yeah. I'll put into. I also like the tithe, but you know, I'll make the note like. Oops. Oh shoot! Didn't really want to go away from that page. Okay. Yeah. So do you want to talk quickly about pick one of those two ice to talk about, and I can take the other one, I guess. Uh,
Uh, sure. Why don't you choose?
okay. I might. You know what? I'll talk about the. I'm going to talk about the easier one, I think, to rationalize, which is just a one cost ice. Um, you know, this deck actually has like the core of this list has very few one cost targets. It like is doesn't also have that many two costs in it. It actually kind of like the curve kind of goes 4 to 3 is most of the curve in this list, with a couple, with the exception obviously of the Mavirus 3 to 2, but it doesn't go 2 to 1 or 1 to 0 very well. But you want to have, that's gonna you're still going to end up in situations frequently enough where you want to extract a two coster, or very commonly, hey, I drew my Regolith and I also have the Malapert on the table. Like that does happen often enough that you'll want to be able to unload the Regolith and get some value. And I think like the reason I actually also like Tithe more than Ice Wall, every runner is going to get their Fracture out against you really quickly, but they can often
Uh,
delay
yeah.
on their killer for quite a long time until they're ready to, like, they will often try and say, oh, here's where your Stavka is, so I'll just run everywhere else and be pretty safe without a killer. And Tithe is like a just annoying enough ice that it often makes them go and install that killer, which often actually ends up leading to the bigger blowouts that you get to do down the road. And having a one cost ice shut off a central for 2 turns, like that's just like an amazing kind of amount of value that it generates.
Yeah, that was really well said. The only thing I would add is that, like, net damage is actually really good. Runners really don't want to take net damage against you because of the way they hold their breakers. and it compounds the more Aziev protocols you play,
Yeah.
because it just gives you that many more chances to knock the Kurupira out of their hand.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point that, does push Azef, where like often good counterplay for the runners is to run without their breakers, but that means if they're drawing them, they're in their hand. And if you can, like, we'll talk about like your most recent stuff where you're really doing quite a lot of program trashing, and damage as program trashing is like a slightly underrated thing. Why don't you talk about Hordem, and then we'll circle back to Daria's question about Afshar.
Sure. The one sentence explanation is that it's 4 credits to break with Buzzsaw. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like a really annoying credit total. And the second sentence is simply like against Issa, that's extra important because like there's like one Buzzsaw in the deck, and it says otherwise planning on breaking all of your ice with Lamb Begamot. And like when your envelopment is blank, this ends up being the most taxing ice you have. So you just need this card on the remote to beat Issa. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and then it's like even against something like Unity, like this is actually a pretty good ice until the very end of the game against something like Unity. Like it's going to cost them 2 or 3 credits. It often costs them 3 credits on JNet when it shouldn't, because people are lazy.
Yeah.
But um, but yeah, like it's like a fairly well positioned ice, even if it's not the flashiest. Or it's not like the most exciting thing to draw, but just getting it out on the board is like it's often a good tutor target. Like I have sometimes gone, okay, I've got a border control on my remote. If I have an agenda I'm looking to push, maybe I just go and grab the Hordem so I have the double gear check set up to kind of go. But
The Hordem also lets you extract an envelopment into a code gate, which you can't
yeah,
otherwise do.
yeah,
Speaking of extract targets, we're being asked about Afshar in the skeleton. I
yeah,
think it's either Afshar or Enigma. I'm playing the Afshar. I can see it
yeah.
going either way,
I was
especially
I
with Winchester in the deck.
Yeah, I am personally higher on Enigma than Afshar, purely because Amakua can be an annoying matchup if your viruses line up incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Enigma, like the other thing is that with an Afshar, or if your virus ends up in archives, the criminal player can still run archives, get the counter on Amakua, and then get through
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
Afshar, which is kind like to me that's enough to make me want to put the Enigma in, even though like it's such a small interaction. And the other thing is like Afshar was really good when everyone was paying like 5 credits to break it, but now that most people are breaking this for
Exactly.
3 credits, it's just like I would rather have that one extra strength that ends up mattering to me purely because of Amakua, basically. Um,
Nitty has to boost to break Enigma.
yeah, yeah, that's another good shout out.
So, so to me, and this is getting past the skeleton, but to me, you need 3 code gates,
Yeah,
and it can either be Afshar, Enigma, Hordem, or Thimble Rig, one of those two, and Hordem.
yeah, and like I choose yet a third option. I am also on
Or
3 code
yes, yeah.
gates, but I actually go just double magnet, which I think if I was to try and build competitively right now, is double magnet the best? No, I could make a somewhat decent argument that there's a lot of Lou that's trying to get around with Botulus, and so magnet actually like does some work in those matchups, but it only does that work up until they find a simul chip, in which case now you're supposed to influence to get one of their simul chips, which they have a lot of access to.
Yeah,
So
I mean
yeah.
that's pretty much how I feel. Like once the magnet gets rezzed, I feel like it is stupid, and the actually getting value on the res, I feel yeah, I mean we'll get into more depth on this later. I
Yeah.
think we'll be able to beat Lou without magnets in our deck. I think we should put a 3-cost code gate like as a
Yeah.
placeholder in the skeleton.
Yeah. I'm
Because
gonna
obviously you need something for BC to get.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the Enigma in, but I'll just put the note in.
Hmm.
Yeah, and oops, it's Enigma can be Afshar, or yeah, can be Afshar. You need 3 code gates. And then it's, thimble rig is thimble rig overall.
Magnet.
Yeah, thimble rig. Oops. And whoops, magnet. Oh, nope, not magnum opus.
Yeah.
And magnet are your influence options, with thimble being much preferred by most good op players.
You don't need to self-deprecate. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out when we play.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, what we could do to show the skeleton, and I don't think this is a thing that anyone would ever actually do, is go 1 Afshar, 1 Enigma, 1 Hortum.
I mean, you're talking to the person who brought 1 Afshar, 1 Enigma, and that was it.
Yeah,
So
I
that
think
was
yeah.
that was not great.
Yeah, I mean, you do you need the 3 code gates, I think, kind of
Yeah.
locked in. One card that like I've played around with, and after this whole rant I just had about Amakua, I've included white space. I have now concluded it is bad. But
Okay, thank you for saving me the trouble of this particular argument.
yeah, having some 2-cost ice would be nice in the list, but that's what I want from NSG, is a good 2-cost end the run ice. So
Yeah, I mean, like, Armicary often ends the run.
does it?
I'm not saying
Does
that.
it?
Yeah, no. Well, we had the conversation about net damage earlier, right? Like, there is that.
Maybe
I'm
maybe
not
yeah.
saying that we should. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is getting ahead of ourselves.
It certainly is.
I think the other like, yeah, I just don't see why we would need a 2-cost ice. Like,
Yeah.
we don't need to fill in every cost slot necessarily, because we have a bunch of great 2-cost like assets and upgrades to extract into.
Yeah, I think it's I guess I will say the reason I have sometimes wanted one, and I think your argument is, or your like point is true there, is at the end of the day we don't need a 2-cost ice, right? We have a lot of other things to do in our 2-cost slot, and we have a lot of other ice at other cost slots that are really powerful for us. The thing that sometimes ends up happening is like, oh, I have my Tucana out. I don't want to get I can't or don't want to get a Regolith on this board state, and I would like to have something to do with my 2-cost.
Oh well, I mean, Thimblerig does that.
Yes, and that's that's why Thimble Rig is actually a fantastic include, because it is that 2-cost 1 influence, improve your deck somewhat quite noticeably.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. It's not the primary ability that I play Thimblerig for. I play it for, yeah. There's also the trick of using Mavirus to get half rune, even after Astafka's already rezzed. But that's half rune. It's a special piece of ice.
Yeah, half rune is its own little special child. Okay, so this is 33 cards. You said you had a 35 card core. I guess, what do you feel like is missing from this core?
Well, I pulled that number out of thin air.
Okay.
I had a couple more agendas.
Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Everything else looks right. I just had 3 Azief, 1 above the law. You can put the above the law in.
Yeah, the above the law does go in every build.
So 3 of Azief, 1 above the law, 2 Oak Towns, and I think 2 Atlas comes out to 14 agenda points.
Comes out to 16.
Okay, delete one of the atlases then.
I'm going to delete one of the SFs because to me that's the like
Okay.
you can go one way or the other. I think, and be good in both
Okay.
directions.
The reason I stopped at 14 is because here you now have a decision about whether to play 2 hostiles and 2 more 2-pointers or just
Yeah,
the 2 SDS.
yeah,
And the 2 SDS is primarily for having 2 extra deck slots.
yeah,
But they also do something else that you can lean into.
yeah, yeah. And it's this is the it's like the do I want to go for 11 agendas or do I want to go for 9 agendas? And do I want to go fully into the OZS? Do I want to go fully into the Atlases? And it's like, yeah, if you have to run 2 more 2-pointers, it's usually like it can be. I think I may have done in the past 2 OZF, 3 Atlas, 3 Oaktown, if I'm remembering what my own list was. Let's see if
And
I
2
can find.
hostile.
And 2 Hostile, I believe, was my. Let me actually pull up my own list for a second. Oh my goodness. Oh no, I did. Okay, this slash and burn just doesn't belong in the list. It should just be the second OZF.
We have to talk about that as as one of the directions the deck can go, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there the decks that play like triple ASIF, like 2 slash and burn, and like 3 ice walls, and they plan
Yeah,
to get Spin Doctor out every time, and that's a deck.
yeah,
That's a deck.
it is definitely a deck. So this is kind of the core of the kind of op that we've been playing a lot of. That's a little bit more mid range rushy. So
We
let's
still
see.
have 8 influence to spend.
Yes. Which is definitely unusual for a lot of decks cores is their almost all of their 15 influence.
So should we
And
talk about the different win conditions now?
yeah, I think this is a great time. I'll pass it over to you while I take a quick bite.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so 8 influence to spend. In my mind, um, the major uh, the major ways. Sorry. First thing I want to say is my philosophy about spending influence in OB. Hi, Kat. We are building. Just to fill you in, we're building like kind of the bare minimum skeleton build, and then talking about the different directions that it can go on top of that. So Halfren, I'm about to talk about. But like, yeah, if that makes sense. So my philosophy about spending influence in OB is I want to spend influence. Like every influence dot that I spend lets the deck do something that it could not do previously. So for example, like Vovo Ozeti,
Yeah.
it just makes money. So to me, like the deck can already just draw extract a sandstone, get a regolith, and make money. So to me, that's a waste of 2 influence. What's another example?
Trying to think what the
I'm
best
sure I'll think
example.
of.
Yeah, I mean you could make
I'll
the
think of some
argument.
later.
Yeah, it's.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
Magnet falls into this category for me
Yeah,
because you can just extract away Botulus without spending influence. And Magnet does it in a different way, and there's trade-offs. But like to me, I can fill 15 influence and give the deck some like really powerful tricks that make those trade-offs just seem like nothing to me. Okay, so Halfren, of course, it's obvious why Halfren, like it's just a 4th gear check.
Yeah.
So that's the Halfren going in the deck, I think is well, it's not largely independent of everything else. If it's in the deck, then you still have a lot of directions open to you. If it's not in the deck, I think you need to be playing probably Skunkworks and attacking the runner's credit pool, because if you're not attacking the runner's programs, you need to be attacking something.
Yeah.
And you can still play Skunkworks without it. But so there's Halfrun, there's Skunkworks, of course,
Yep.
and Formicary goes with Skunkworks. There is more copies of Seamless Launch. And I said like it lets the deck do something that it couldn't do previously. And so, like, if we're already playing a seamless launch, what good does extra seamless launch like
Yeah,
do?
yeah,
And I mean, that's kind of the same reason as like why is the precision design ability good? Like, it's just
yeah.
it's good to have more of those. And in fact, like in the build with SDS drone deployment, I like to have 3 seamless launch because that lets you like seamless advance, score a 3-2, put a like seamless advance, score a 3-2, malapert for seamless, and put an SDS, and you're threatening to never advance the SDS like next turn. And that is not something you could do with fewer than 3 seamless in the deck.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, I'm not saying that that's a common thing,
Yeah.
but that's my philosophy about why the second and third copies of seamless are good. That doesn't, the second Mavirus, we're not going to debate cutting that. But the third Mavirus to me is kind of a luxury. It doesn't like fall into that argument as hard. It's a great luxury. I would love to have it. But I often find myself looking at that influence dot and thinking like, this could be a sprint to let me shuffle back my half rune when I draw it. This could be a thimble rig to let me fix my ice. And gear check Issa more efficiently and gear check against Bankar more efficiently. So those are the 2 like good things that I can be doing with like 1 pip of influence.
Yeah.
If you like a magnet, it could be a magnet.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, in my mind, the major ways to spend 6 influence are 2 skunkworks and 3 seamless. And of course, you can make trade-offs. I mentioned at the start of the stream that having 2 skunkworks lets you do the trick like where the last turn of the game skunkworks is on every server magically.
Yeah.
That kind of counts as something you can't do with just 1 skunkworks in the deck.
Yeah, so like to me sometimes I have played so I've played some of the most weirdest op where it's like 3 Mavirus, 1 Manigarm and 0 Forma carries. Basically with the idea that I don't need Manigarm consistently every single time. But I do like having the extra Mavirus does still let me get to that end game tutor position because I won't draw it naturally that often in most of my games because of how aggressively I was playing a lot of those games. And I think this is like, this is like one of those things where like as we're having this conversation, I'm like, okay, a lot of what it was I've been playing op as this like hyper rush deck that I think, there's a lot of good reasons to be like, okay, actually the way to solve a lot of the problems in the meta right now are by going 2 turns slower, but having a more robust mid and end game rather than trying to like high roll on your first couple of cards. But
yeah,
it's been a play style that's been pretty successful for me, and I probably has I think it's still actually a pretty strong and valid one to go with. But
I think that 1 skunkworks is fine. It's kind of a hybrid approach. I think I mentioned this before the stream, but I'd like to call it out like on stream. Like the notion of having a hybrid game plan is often like general netrunner deck building wisdom about that is that it's often bad because it compromises you because you draw half of each game plan and then you're screwed. But in OB, your identity has like a search on it. So you draw half of a game plan and then you search for the other one. So there is merit to playing hybrid game plans in OB, and I think 1 skunkworks has been something that like I've kind of been exploring a little bit recently. Like my 2 most recent OB lists on JNet, like one of them has 0 and one of them has 1. I do think if you have 1, you need to play Forma carries. And it's just like if you draw the Forma carry, you're like, okay, now I'll go get my skunkworks. If you have 1 skunkworks, I think you need to have the 3rd Mavirus because you need to search for it.
yeah.
But yeah. Worth noting also that Stavka can get skunkworks.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so you could have one of those, you could have two of those. You could have seamless, you can have half rune. The diff from here to what I played at Worlds is you add 2 skunkworks and 1 seamless,
Yeah.
and not have half rune. You could add 2 seamless and a half rune, and that gets you to like the list that I brought to PAX. Oh, sorry.
2 seamless, a half run,
Yeah, we have
and
it was 2 seamless, a half rune, a sprint, and a thimble rig. I needed to
okay.
spend 8 there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Actually, let's include
yeah.
it. Let's put sprint on here as well.
The sprint goes with the half rune if you ask me.
Okay.
You could play it without, but for just one influence, like it makes the half rune game plan a lot stronger. And also, if you're playing SDS, it's really good to shuffle the SDS away in a game where you decide you don't want to score it. So it's just a great card.
Yeah, and I could definitely see also in a game with SDS where like you're not I'm assuming most of the time you're not scoring SDS. I guess actually you might be scoring SDS as 1 or 2 in some states. Though I feel like it's probably wouldn't be your preference if you could avoid it. I don't know how much
It's
it's
the
come
first
up
or
for you.
second.
Yeah.
You mean, well, I mean, trashing a fractor with it is great.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just I find myself not doing that in practice because kind of the stars have to line up. You have to draw enough copies of Seamless, and you have to draw enough economy that you don't feel like you need an economy agenda. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll see how it feels when we play it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like a good skeleton. I think the other card, like that we haven't mentioned, but like calibration testing, has to change a lot of this build. Goes more heavily on the 3/2s.
Tattoo Bulb was also mentioned in the chat.
Yeah.
I don't feel highly about either of those cards for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think we should give them their due diligence on the stream instead of just playing the decks that we want.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to me about calibration testing.
Yeah, so calibration testing like did very well at Worlds, right? And it's continued to do well since then. What I have found personally is that calibration testing mostly is like a win more card that doesn't help you win that much more relative to the other 3 influence you could be spending on this. So it ends up being like quite influence heavy for a pretty marginal amount of game change because the thing, I mean, and this is a little bit of a bias of like small play size. For me, I found myself drawing calibration testing a lot, in which case I'm pretty sad because if I'm just installing it in the remote, I would rather just be installing an agenda in the remote most of the time. Like, yes, this can kind of do the same thing, but it puts some pretty severe restrictions on your economy and like flexibility. And the like play that you want to do of pop up border control into putting a calibration testing in the remote to like just keep the tempo machine going is just like it doesn't happen as much. Like if your remote is safe enough that you can throw away a border control and have it still be safe, you are already going to win that game. And so calibration testing doesn't actually do anything from my perspective. I would say, even just looking at this list, I would probably just cut one of these viruses for a better card like immediately, because you have 4 ways to tutor your Takana here, and nothing else you need that badly. This list has some other things we would quibble about, but like that's kind of my thinking on calibration testing. But I'm curious what your perspective on it is.
I think you said it great. The way I would have said it was by saying the same thing you said about like if you're able to protect the Cali, you should be able to protect your game plan to begin with. The game plan of like hope to bait them into a BC last click, I don't think is very good. So like, I mean, and maybe that strategy crushes Swiss, but certainly if I know I'm playing against a Cali build, I'm going to never run less click. just because I know what the deck can do. And not running last click, I feel like it turns off like so much of their influence um, that they would just rather spend influence somewhere else.
Yeah.
So there's that. Um, yeah, that's the only thing I had to add on top of like the reason that it feels win more to me.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I think that's a good
yeah,
point. I think,
I think
the play that justifies it to some extent is people running into like a thimble rig can kind of turn into an extra thing to like, oh, if they run last click, you can move around a border control and like get some extra leverage that way. I think that's a neat play. I think it's still just a little bit more win more than the deck needs when it actually just needs some like resiliency tools. Um,
you
and
can play
seamless,
Thimble Rig without Callie.
yeah, yeah. I think playing Thimble
Right.
Rig is just a good card. I'm coming around to that. So
You mentioned Seamless, and that was the other thing I wanted to say. Like, building on the point where, like, if you can protect Callie, you can protect an agenda instead. And then the Callie could be a Seamless launch. And then you've saved an influence.
yeah,
And it does the same thing. It scores the agenda a click faster. So yeah, I think Seamless launch is the direct comparison to me.
yeah. I'll admit to not having looked at Tautobola seriously in the list. I think thinking back on our earlier conversation, we've already talked about how the 2 cost ice slot is not something you need badly for the deck. It's a luxury for the deck. And Thimble
Yeah.
Rig is already a better ice for that slot. Um, and like you're not hurting for barriers you want to res early in the game. And
You certainly don't
so
need. Yeah.
and so it's like, okay, I'm paying 2 influence to make 2 credits once a game, or 4 credits, I guess, if I'm like
Yeah, you
getting
make
some
four.
tutor stuff. But like,
Yeah.
I
Um,
I'm not paying 2 influence for 4 credits. I could just play an
right.
extra
That
hedge
comes
fund.
back to right. That comes
Yeah,
back to the argument against like Vovo.
yeah,
So
agreed. Yeah,
yeah.
I enjoyed Vovo. It was not right. It was purely I can't think of a better way to spend 2 influence. And like if it had been seamless, it would have been just better for most of that
Yeah.
event. I think. Um,
Right.
so um, yeah, I think that's all the questions we had in the chat. Do we want to actually take here? This is the like skeleton, and then do we want to quickly talk about maybe the build that you're excited about, and then play some games today, and then next time I have you on, we can talk about some of uh,
Sure.
the variants of the or like other directions you could take this.
So
Yeah, go
regarding
ahead.
MIC, yeah, uh, I thought about it. I didn't. I either played like 1 or 0 games with it in the deck during Worlds testing. Ultimately, it doesn't do anything that the deck doesn't already do in terms of like, BC ends the run already, and the run is worse. You kind of need to be playing Skunkworks in order for that click or end the run to be good, and at that point, you're already so saturated on like influence, and you're kind of not playing Seamless Launch.
Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of,
Like,
so it's just an awkward thing that like doesn't win the game to me. That's how I view it. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I realize it sounds like dismissing the card out of hand, um, but I think we would need to play a lot of games in order to like really experimentally prove on stream the point. And I don't want to spend that much of the series like stream time.
yeah.
Okay, so this build, the deck the deck has 2 names currently. It's called Boss Like Ob because it's kind of inspired by the Mental Boss build. If you have that open and could like briefly tab over there.
Did you send that to me or? Oh, you did. You did. I'm sorry. Yes, here it is.
Yeah. So the two ideas I stole from here are playing SDS and playing Sprint.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's a pretty, it's pretty similar to what we've got. It has a couple of problems, like it doesn't have Regolith, it doesn't have Malapert,
Yeah.
and those are just kind of obvious improvements.
Yep.
So I took the deck I took the two good ideas from the deck and I put it into mine. Um,
Yeah.
so what's going on in this deck, if you'll tab back,
Ooh.
um, is it is leaning even harder on the half rune by having 2 SDS, and with the extra deck slots that you get from playing 9 agendas, you're playing a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Um, and I got this idea, of course, from Sokka, who Trojan horsed my cleaver in his ETL build at Crown of Servers, and I was like, damn, like I haven't thought about that card in a long time. And it turns out to be really freaking good. Just like it's hard to explain like
Yeah.
how good the Trojan horse is. Um, in a deck where you're already like knocking stuff out of their hand with 3 Outsafe protocol, and pressuring them with half rune on the board, or obviously not half rune itself on the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like it completes the package, and you can search for it with Malapert. Like you could like seamless an agenda, search for the Trojan horse, and play it on the same turn. It just does so much.
Yeah.
So that's really the card to highlight in this deck. Otherwise, it's pretty much the skeleton.
Yeah.
Like plus the stuff that we've seen.
Yeah. Like the big note, like obviously
there's 3 stop
removes
of course.
It removes an
There's
atlas for the
sprint,
Ozza,
which lets you shuffle the half rune back.
Yeah.
The worst matchup. So yeah, I started playing this like since Worlds, and the worst matchup, like the deck list of the week was one of those like big Hoshikos with like 60 cards, and it had like 3 of each breaker. And I played against that in JNet randoms, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna run you out of your cleavers or whatever, and there turned out to be 3 cleavers in the deck. And it just felt so awkward. So you are kind of all in on that program trashing, and that is a lot more effective against criminal. The Trojan horse lets you go over flip switch and stuff like that. And of course, if you can get an SDS score, that's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
it doesn't have the ability to, pressure the credit pool.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because it's like,
I mean, I just always like to analyze decks by calling out what the worst matchup is.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to
and
shout
that's what's
out.
going on. It's the shell plus Thimblerig, Sprint, SDS, and Trojan Horse.
Yeah, so I think the SDS Trojan Horse basically, and honestly, the third seamless launch really does lean into what this deck is trying to do. Yeah.
So this, I mean, to say like one more sentence, this goes back to the philosophy I said earlier about like, if you're not playing Skunkworks, you either need to be playing like the all-in on 3 Audacity build, just go super fast, which I don't personally like, that's not my style. Or you need to be thinking about your late game, like how are you not going to lose on centrals? And leaning extra hard into the program trashing is kind of how you're going to do that in this build. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun. You also often with the Trojan Horse, you don't need to like fully pay the trace to guarantee the best trash. You're just like, I'm going to pay enough to trash like a program that'd be really annoying for you. And if you, for example, like if they have Shibboleth and Croupier on the board, I'll pay enough to trash the Shibboleth for sure. And they're like, oh crap, if I want to save my Croupier, I also have to pay money. And that can kind of often be enough. So the Trojan Horse is often like deceptively cheap. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
One other thing about, and this isn't specific to this deck, but one thing about Thimblerig that hasn't been mentioned yet is that against a Bankar deck, like if you try to gear check against Bankar with like 2 ice, they can just put Botulus on the inner one and run in, and they're pretty much good. And if you have a border control, that gets around it, but sometimes you don't have a border control. So what Thimblerig does is like, if you put Sandstone Thimblerig, then they actually have to have like 2 breakers instead of just Bankar Botulus, because the Thimblerig can like swap with the ice that has the Botulus on it. That's just a neat trick that you can do with Thimblerig.
Okay, let's quickly talk about this hand. Um, I'm actually gonna like my hunch on this is that I would keep this hand. It's not quite what I'd want, but it's pretty. It's hard to get most. It's in the upper half of my hands, I think. Um, though it's a little bit on the slow side. Um,
I agree. If we're formulating a game plan with just what we have in the hand, we want to get the sandstone rezzed, extract it into a regolith behind the BC, empty that out. We would need to draw more ice to make that happen.
yeah,
Um, or we could just, yeah, I mean, the hand doesn't make money on its own,
yeah,
especially against Sable. You don't want to leave your centrals open like that, but
yeah. And I guess like as a turn one, it's something like double ice, click for a credit on a good chunk of draws, which is pretty slow. So I could see that as a good argument for throwing it back because the seamless launch is more of a mid game card. Um,
mm, yeah. I think the question we need to answer before we decide whether to keep is, are we going to put the BC on a central, or are we going to leave R&D open and hope that we don't get Hermes siphoned?
Yeah, I guess my expectation is to just kind of roll the Hermes dice.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah. This hand is 100% committed to that line. I feel like the Sandstone BC on centrals feels, at least to me, as the way I'm used to playing, feels very slow and non threatening to the runner, giving them time to find all of their tools. But
I agree. Um, it also, like, the plan where you extract into regolith, it doesn't have an ice to protect the regolith. Mind you, you'd need to draw ice either way for that line. So
yeah.
if we draw a hedge fund, I think I'd put both ice on the centrals. Um,
Hmm.
but let's keep it and see where it takes us.
Okay. Uh, yeah, I guess while we're waiting now for our opponent to come back, now that we've teased them with a delay, what? Oh, okay, great. So actually, we'll just do the first turn here. We drew an above the law, which is not a hedge fund, unfortunately. Um, I could see a world where we say we actually want to double ice up centrals, but to me, I'm still kind of leaning on the sandstone HQ border control remote and just take a credit to try and set up for an above the law score next turn potentially.
Clicking to draw instead of putting the border control is also an option.
Oh yeah, I like that as an option, probably a little bit more. Yeah, Thimble Rig seems pretty solid here. Um,
We could ice up both centrals now.
yeah, I was actually just about to say now we can actually ice up both centrals, and this slows down Sable a lot in most situations. Um, I guess this is actually interesting. I guess no, we do want to res here because of extract resistance, basically. Um, if we didn't
Yeah.
have extract in hand, I think I might actually just let this bravado through. Um,
There are hands when you, yeah. Like if we're planning to get the regolith out by just like rezzing him a virus, um, then I agree. But yeah.
yeah, but now basically, oh, we're a credit short. That's a little bit annoying.
We did need to click for credit at some point, so perhaps clicking to draw last turn wasn't great. But this is getting into like tactical minutiae.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to some extent, we can go click for credit. I don't actually mind border control sandstone as a remote server, but we can't build that this turn. It would just basically be yeah, this is good.
Um,
It yeah.
the
It's
sandstone replaces the sandstone we're about to extract.
yeah.
So I think the line might just be border control remote and click for 2 credits.
Yeah. I think that's where that is where I was heading of we actually don't have a better turn than this. And we
Actually,
just
um, it there might have been a better line. No, there wasn't a better line. Sorry.
yeah. I don't think I okay. So forge activation orders is definitely not something I'm expecting to see. Um, the question is the border control worth it? I think it probably is. It's going to cost us. Well, okay. It's is this border control better than our turn that we're going to have? And I think honestly, unless we top deck another ice, border control is kind of worth a turn to me. Um,
It's the best ice in this matchup.
yeah,
So we're stuck clicking for 3 next turn. But yeah.
yeah. Like this forge activation orders ends up being really impactful. It's basically a gain a full turn.
It's like the best I've ever seen forged activation orders be.
Yeah,
But
because
like
yeah,
in the broader scheme, um yeah, in the broader scheme of things, I think we're doing fine against Sable. We have ice on every server.
yeah,
We have a plan. It's slowed down by a few turns, but getting set up against Sable is generally the problem.
yeah. So
Um,
the question to me here is, do we
mhm.
put a card in the remote? Like we could potentially put the above the law down here. Um, it's not quite congruent with the game plan we've been discussing, but I think it does open up a line of. Well, it doesn't really open up. It doesn't actually cleanly open up any lines for us, to be honest. Um, it does let us do some. If they don't challenge it, we can end up doing some fun things with like still using the extract on the sandstone to get it to Kana, uh,
Mhm.
and then sandstoning, and then just being like, you can have like you can try and the SDS in hand ends up being the thing you have to try and steal, which is not always easy to do for criminal early. But it's also like, well, I could also just discard a seamless launch and be fine, right? Like that's the other play here.
Yeah, I think those are the two major lines. Um, if we had like, yeah, I mean, if we had more credits, I would consider putting Sandstone on HQ,
Yeah,
like paying an extra credit in order not to have to discard. But we're in this like stuck position
yeah,
where that will just set us back by the same whole turn that we just saved.
yeah,
So, um, I think
yeah,
you identified the two major lines. I think they're both fine.
yeah. I'm gonna do the.
Sable is unlikely to contest above the law if we just put it. Um,
Yeah, actually, that's fair. Let's. You know what? Let's do that. Because I mean, it is potentially going down 4 points early in the game, which is like often how you lose this matchup. Um, but I think it's fine.
I don't I don't think we're going to lose it.
Yeah. I mean, this is also why you need the 3 cost code gate in the deck, is basically for this play.
Exactly.
Okay. The question is, do I deny the Kuapira counter here? Or do I just let them drain 2 credits? I feel like in your build, you actually probably do just want to deny the counter, but it's probably a little not, doesn't matter too much.
It's a tough call here. I can see it going either way.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to pop on approach because I think the thing that's tilting me towards popping on approach is Trojan Horse. To me, feels like the card where I care about the runner's econ on this list, and we're quite a ways away from making that relevant.
Yep.
Um, so we want the Afshar on server one.
Oops. This should have been the other one.
What? Uh, what Enigma?
Yeah, Enigma.
Is that in the list?
No, it's
No,
Afshar
no.
instead.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got it. Got it.
But
I
it
misunderstood.
should be the Enigma.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we now actually have quite a couple of options. So the line I talked about previously was basically going extract, like click for a credit, extract the sandstone to put it to Kana on server one, and then just putting the second sandstone on server one as well. Um, the odds
We get
that
siphoned if we do that.
yes, Yes, we do. Now, the siphon doesn't actually stop
Um,
us from scoring, I guess would be my point.
I think
In
it
that,
cripples us long
yeah,
term
that's
enough.
fair.
Like I'm willing to get siphoned if I'm extracting into regolith,
Okay.
but we're
Yeah,
not.
yeah, that's fair.
You could extract. I mean, just throwing out lines here. You could
Mm-hmm.
extract into regolith over the above the law and put the spin doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Above the law is really good here though against
Yeah,
early paladin. So I kind of am disinclined to do that. Credit, extract, put the sandstone back on HQ. Um, Extracting into Tucana is a little bit of a telegraph.
yeah,
Um, like the primary candidate for what that card was last turn was Rashida, which it
yeah.
obviously isn't now. Um, so Inside Job gets in, Boomerang gets in. Obviously Shibboleth gets in.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. The reason that I kind of like the Extracticana for Afshar Sandstone on the remote, it does open us up to diversion. The thing it does allow us to do is if they do go diversion score, we still get the Tucana trigger to then stabilize our centrals again, and give us a little bit of time to meander our way back through the game. Um,
We're down 4-0 though. We could also just score it now.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we could score it now for a credit and then click for a credit, or and that seems like totally fine as well.
I think that's what I would do.
Yeah,
I'm coming
maybe
around to
that
that line.
after going through all these lines, like this is the simplest line that risks the least, and it's always the paladin here, not the class act.
For sure.
So got that just in time. Hopefully Hermes isn't going to hurt us too bad here. Ugh.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, this
Well.
just happens sometimes.
Yep. All right. So top card is safe. Info bounty comes down late. Malapert. Okay. Um. Yeah. I mean, it's credit install a card, I guess. Um. Or I guess we could go credit and now actually extract to get the Regolith.
We don't
But
want to
that
leave regolith unprotected.
yeah, that leaves all the centrals open. So yeah, I mean, to me, I'm probably just looking at putting the thimble rig back down, clicking for 2 credits, and discarding the Malapert here, I think. Um, or it's actually, you know what? No. As I say that, click for 2 credits, put the Spin Doctor, discard the SDS is, I think, the much clearer play.
We keeping the SDS might be one of our only ways to win the game, especially since we have a seamless left.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we could put the spin, put the thimble rig, and credit.
Okay. Yeah, to me the like I don't think this is the reason I went with it is because I think it makes a good chunk of sense. Part of me is just saying, there's no situation where I'm resing the thimble rig. The Malapert data default discard I would also wouldn't be the end of the world to me, but I get because we can no longer tutor it with Regolith no matter what. Um, but oh, I think our opponent miscounted. Uh, Yeah, I mean this is Sandstone sick for costing Kurapira a monstrous
Yeah,
amount of credits to get through.
a lot. All right,
All right.
well, that happened.
Yeah, that's the game. All right. Well, GG. Uh, so it goes.
I think we played fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we played to be like we played to be able to survive like two more turns, and we didn't. And
Yeah.
central accesses were pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
So I think we were fine.
this is 7 points on 4 cards action. 4 cards accessed.
Right. Yeah.
So you know, yeah, that was 3 central accesses and 1 whiff on the central access. So yeah, this is like pull out the Andre's calculator, see that we're on the far, almost as far on the bell curve as you can possibly go. Um,
This was not the
and
most traumatizing Sable Hermes game I've ever played.
no,
Um,
yeah, Hermes actually did pretty little here, to be honest. But
it didn't do that much.
yeah,
Should we run it back?
yeah, let's run it back. Daria, are you good to, or if someone else, I know both Jonas, Augustus, if any of you want to hop in. Um, oh, frick. Well, okay, I'll just have to rip the whole VOD from YouTube. Uh,
Whoops.
Whoops. Next time I'll
We
be
would
on
have
top of
asked our
this.
opponent if he wanted to play again, but his handle is not again, so
Yeah.
that was not in the cards.
But yeah, if someone on stream wants to hop in quickly, yeah, go ahead, Daria. Go ahead and join. We'll have someone else play another matchup. Oh, okay. Jonas beat you to it. Um, let's see if
Wait,
he's
wait,
playing.
wait, wait, wait.
Oh,
Oh well. I was going to tell you to replace the Afshar.
oh, okay.
But we'll do that next time.
Yep. Okay. Man, this is a hand I really want to keep because it's got 2 border controls and Rashida, but I'm not sure it's actually that good in this particular matchup right now.
Why not?
Because we can't. Well, so it's the. You know what? I guess this says. So the thing that I guess I'm worried about is run the remote, we res the border control, run HQ, steal the above the law, and then pinhole threading, trash the Rashida, right? But
That would be the worst case. I
yeah,
was more thinking about like Siphon forces us to res on HQ and then we lose the Rashida, but we trade for a Siphon.
yeah, and that's probably okay at the end of the day. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like, we have a turn one Rashida.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, hard to say no.
like yeah, if we had a hedge fund, we would play turn two Rashida, but like,
Yeah,
I think this is in the top like 30% of hands.
yeah, yeah. Spin Doctor's fine here. Yeah, so this is just border control HQ, Rashida new remote, border control server 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Spin Doctor helps us do a lot of recovery here if this Rashida gets hit. Well, it doesn't help us a lot, but it helps us to some extent. And you know, this is in fact just a Reg Sable deck basically, but um, it's just in a different idea, I guess. Basically, like it's not that it's not a meme deck, but it's maybe not the most serious of decks.
And is real.
Yeah. Ken is finally real. All it took was a 1 cost sure gamble that he plays. All it took was a 1 cost sure gamble, basically, I guess. All right. Long think makes me suspect it's an asset. Sure is. It's a Rashida.
Not a long thing to trash a Rashida, if you ask me.
Yeah, that is kind of a long thing to trash a Rashida. And Bravado. Okay. Last click Bravado. Yeah. I mean this is a very good starting hand for the Ken for sure. Like Paladin, Carpe Diem, Bravado, these are like some of his best cards, but we gotta, we also have a very good hand here, so I'm not gonna mind too much.
It was neither of the worst case scenarios that either of us imagined, and we have
Yes.
another shot to kill a paladin.
Yeah. Okay. these are always the fun turns. To me, it's I'm leaning on like install SF, install Stavka, click for a credit. Um,
Why SEF over above the law?
because I forgot that above the law was in our hand somehow. Uh,
Did you just blank when I said we have another shot to kill Paladin?
yes, I was like, no, we don't. Yeah,
Um, I'm not
wild
convinced
about
that
this
we
line.
need.
Need the
I'm
second
not
ice.
convinced we need a second ice. Yeah.
Okay. Uh,
Um, putting spin is the other thing I was considering. Putting spin gives us more chances to draw a Tucana.
mm,
And it also gives us like it lets us ditch the ICF protocols. I don't know.
yeah.
Credit would
So
be
like, yeah,
fine,
there
but
is a line where
yeah.
actually maybe what the correct thing to do there was click one install and draw two with spin. And then play your turn
If you
from there.
plan on discarding a 3/2, that could have yeah, I mean
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm reasonably happy to just seamless this above the law. Um,
yeah, for sure.
this is just shuffle back to Rashida's, not make the runner trash, I assume. Gonna
I think
ask a
so.
dumb question, but yeah.
Ken is not going to be hurting for money for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Oaktown's actually a very nice draw here.
We should have shuffled away some of the ICF protocols.
Yeah.
Now that I
In
think about it.
retrospect, we definitely should have. I think to me, this is probably seamless. Advance the above the law and then just put an ice on R&D with no intent to actually res it. Maybe it's click for a credit and get rid of the envelopment. Or the
Um,
sandstone, actually, I guess. But
we have 4 credits at the end of the turn,
yeah,
so I think that we should prefer not to discard
that's fair.
or prefer to discard fewer things.
Yeah. Okay. Question to me is, yeah. I mean, so the reality is we're not resing this ice that we install. So if that's the case, regardless, I almost want to put the envelopment on R&D because that's probably where I'm going to want it to end up later in the game.
I'm not sold on that. I
Okay.
think we could conceivably want it on HQ.
Hmm.
If we're looking for a later res on R&D, I think Stavka's the pick. The other candidate to me is the Sandstone because it lets us feed it to ICF Protocol.
Okay. I kind of like
Either
that,
of those
but
would be, yeah.
yeah, I always like having. Well, you know what? I'm a big fan of the Stavka where it doesn't quite make sense, or like where it's not
No,
maybe not
yeah,
expected.
this is,
Um,
yeah, that's a great
yeah.
install.
So is it ditch the border control here? Weirdly, probably not. Uh,
We do have 2 of it already.
yeah.
Um,
I think it's.
so I think it's, yeah.
Let's see. If we go install advance the Oaktown, we go up to 5. And then we could put the sandstone on server 1.
With 3 agendas in HQ, I think we have to plan on spending 4 credits.
Yeah. If that's the situation, I mean, I think envelopment is the card I'm furthest from playing in this hand, um, which would be my reason to discard it here. I think.
That'd be fine.
I forget. Are you on 2 envelopment or 1?
I have 2. I would never play fewer than 2.
Yeah.
I only said that 1 was like the skeleton number because like the decks that play like more audacities, calibration testing, I think they play fewer.
Yeah.
But I still think they should be playing 1 just because it's such a good toolbox card.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to res here. We
it's
just
fine.
don't really have a choice, but
We got our credit back.
yeah. Yeah, Runner's still showing no access tools, so there is a world where you can still just go install Advance in Oaktown. I think it's not your preference, but it's like it's a play. It's definitely a play that I sometimes just say like, yeah, this is one of my routes out of this game. But
I mean, like we're up 2-0, so I like that better. It's like we click for 2 credits. You have to show me a double gear check,
yeah,
and you get the Oaktown. Like that's fine.
yeah, yeah, because it's like, oh yeah, what would we be doing instead of advancing this to Oaktown? Well, we'd be clicking for credits, right? And so Oaktown is just clicking for credits while also actually creating a threat, and Runner has to have two tools here. There are
One thing that's worth pointing out here is that if I have Tucana in my hand, I'm probably not even going Oaktown Tucana Advance, because like you get the Tucana trigger, but you spend all your credits towards the Tucana.
yeah,
You can't like pay past the 3 discount, and you lose the Tucana. So it's like the worst Tucana ever.
yeah.
Um, sorry if
Yeah.
I interrupted you there.
No. And you can actually still do the like if you do it this way, you can also install the Yukana on your next turn on the score if
Right,
you want to.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
And then you have the money to yeah.
Yeah. You're still quite low, like that you really do want to get often like you want to get two triggers off of your Chukana most of the time. But well, we're getting pretty lucky here with no Hermes and no breakers out on the table.
Hermes doesn't bounce Oaktown.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, another reason to like include Oaktowns is its resilience to Hermes.
Yeah, I view like having 2 Oaktowns in the deck as kind of like a toolbox card, in the sense that I mean you can't search for it, but
Yeah,
like at the end of the game where you want to play around Hermes, they've stolen one of it, you've drawn the other one. Like it gives you that option.
yeah. So this is
Um,
the yeah the to me this is what do we want to do with this last click? We can click for 2 credits. We can install an ice, or we can install an Azef. Because the Kurapira is down, I'm a little bit less inclined for the install the Azef line right now.
um,
But
yeah, I don't like that. I think install Tithe on Archives is pretty good, because Ken, obviously, it's Ken. If we click for 2 credits, we could discard the second Sandstone.
mm-hmm.
Maybe check the heap and see how many. I think we've seen 2 Carpes and no Laundries.
3 Bravados, 2 Carpes, no Laundries. Yeah, and the mutual favor is out too.
I think the Tithe line and the click for 2 credits line are both good.
Yeah. Let's score. We're gonna go for the shields up line, I think, because now this actually takes away all low risk runs.
Yeah, to me, it's more about stopping Ken's run events than it is about not discarding the second Sandstone.
Yeah,
Because like we only really need 1 Sandstone here. The second one is great. Make no mistake.
yeah, yeah. This is also to me part of why you want 3. Is it's really important to be able to have consistent 3-cost tutors off of your border control, and often you're only running 1 or 2 code gate targets, and so like you really want an extra. You want to make sure you're always going to have targets in your deck.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like in 2022, I played like 3 Afshar because of how ubiquitous Black Orchestra was.
Yeah.
And you just need enough 3s.
Yep. Am I popping border control here? I feel like this is actually a decent border control pop. It's not great though, but we know that there's one diversion down.
I think we do.
Yeah.
It becomes Afshar, like, yeah.
Yep. Like Runner
Again,
can be
there's
pretty
the charge
happy with.
question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no. Yeah, the charge question is definitely relevant here. I think I'm like, oh, in this situation, our economy is in a slightly better spot. So I'd rather put a little bit of pressure on the runner who's really tied up in interaction for a lot of their econ.
It's also the first counter and not like the second counter. If it was the second counter,
Hmm.
then, for example, um, Jonas has the line of last click, just run the remote, pay 2 credits to get the third counter,
Yeah.
um, which is not so good right now.
Okay. Well, the sprint is pretty perfectly timed, I think.
I agree.
Okay.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is great. What a good sprint.
What a good job, sprint. So I'm just to keep the game moving. I'm gonna say, what would you shuffle back here? I have not done enough thinking about the shuffling here. So,
As you have Sandstone.
yeah. Okay, that was my initial hunch, but I'm glad. So, okay, now it's just Rashida Sandstone on the remote.
Um, we're out of code gates, so the border control just becomes Sandstone here.
Hmm.
So it's either Rashida Sandstone or it's Rashida and Sandstone on HQ. Because getting siphoned would suck here.
Oh, that's fair.
Actually,
I
BC
don't.
should go on HQ because we want to just end the run.
Okay, so you think it's actually Rashida BCHQ? I guess. Okay, my question is, how much does it suck here? Its opponent installs Shibboleth, then does diversion, and then what do they do to leverage it from there? I guess relative to our Rashida value.
Um, I mean, just getting siphoned stops us from raising all of our stuff, right? Like
Um,
Stavka's a threat, right? The Stavka threat is what I'm worried about protecting.
so I guess the reason I'm thinking about that, I guess to me, I'm like, I would if I can get the Rashida off, then I can also do the like extract into something, put the border control on HQ next turn if I feel if it's like relevant there, and I'll also have the Stavka threat back up. So that's why I'm leaning a little bit more on wanting to try and protect the remote server here to some extent. Because
But
yeah,
like, um,
because right now the border control on server one isn't actually representing that much on its own.
like the line I'm thinking about for next turn is extracting into Regolith,
Mm-hmm.
um, the Afshar into Regolith. But obviously, if we can force a gear check with the Afshar first, that's better. Um, I just don't want to get siphoned. I feel like we lose if we get siphoned. I'm overreacting, but our credit pool is under some pressure. Okay, sorry. Our credit pool is under enough pressure that if we get siphoned and lose the Rashida somehow, then we get stuck clicking for credits in order to play the extract.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that is a
yeah.
fair to me when I look at this board state. I'm like, okay, what's the pattern where that happens? Is Jonas is holding in hand exactly Shibboleth, diversion, pinhole,
Or
and
boomerang.
uh, so that yeah, oh, you're right. So yes, that also works. So okay, so that gives 3 targets to hit on the HQ run. Um, but
Diversion was discarded, which makes me think there's probably another one.
that's fair. I mean, it's not good in every matchup, and this is, but that's fine. Okay, so the
No,
line you, yeah,
yeah, it's not certain that there's another one, but
yeah. Okay, so the line you want to do is what? Credit BC on HQ.
yeah, and Rashida. Or um yeah, the other line I'm considering is extracting the Afshar now into
Mm-hmm.
Regolith, BC on HQ, and Sandstone on server one. And that kind of protects the Regolith a little bit, and we can empty it last turn. But I don't like to pass turn with 15 credits on a Regolith. So
Yeah,
yeah, and like the only thing that does is it saves a credit on this install, and it also has the downside of no longer ear checking for code gates.
yeah, yeah. I think
Did
like
you not install? Hold on. Did you not install the Rashida?
no, because we only had 2 clicks left.
Oh, but you click for a credit. I would have put the
Yes.
Rashida instead of click for credit.
I guess okay, that's fair. Yeah, that makes a little more sense. I was like, this is leaving the Rashida stranded. But I get to me,
We don't
I
lose
don't.
if Rashida dies.
I guess from my perspective, I don't really want to just put the Rashida behind a border control here because then we just exchange a border control for 2 credits, um, which like pretty feels like it's not a great use of border
Okay.
control to me. Um, but like in my playstyle, I'm also just like saying, yeah, if you have the 3 card combo, you have it. Um,
I see where you're coming from. I think the reason my intuition kind of caps out the value of this BC because he's always just got the line of like, just run it to charge my Kurapira, and then the
mhm.
Sandstone is worse later.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I see where you're coming from. I think they're both fine. We have extract in
yeah,
hand, so like we're great.
yeah. Okay. Um,
I think the line is fairly obvious now.
I'm actually not sure it is.
Done.
What is the line to you?
Hedge fund, Rashida, Sandstone remote.
Okay.
What is the line to you?
I was thinking about what was I thinking about? I don't know why I was thinking about pushing. Oh, I was thinking about pushing because I was thinking that I had a Manic in the deck. So I would have gone extract the Manic into a extract the Afshar into a Manic border install
I
the
see.
Ozef, install the Sandstone. But without the Manic this line makes a ton of sense, and still puts threat down. The other line, the other line, is just extract the Afshar because Unity's down. It's done its job. We get the Regalith, power it up, uh, but it's
Um,
still not great there, honestly.
I think that we could realistically push this turn instead of the Rashida.
Yeah,
Because he has to pay 5 + 4 through the Sandstone, plus another 2 through the BC. Doesn't even get to to pass at all. Like that's more credits than he has.
yeah.
Not that he can't do it, but like that's all of his credits if he like plays a gamble and takes the Azia.
Oh well, this is good.
This is pretty good.
Yeah. So part of me just says, okay, I'm happy to rip up the Tithe here. Though the other option would be to rip up the Afshar to get it to Kana
you don't
down.
you don't need to
Uh,
rip up anything.
oh yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, yeah, I always forget this. Okay, well,
I think
uh,
I think we can probably say he was thinking like, I am behind enough now, and this remote looks secure enough that at some point I just have to guess.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
like
because like to be honest, we are
right,
actually threatening
like
Stavka on. We were threatening Stavka on every server there, right? So
right, and
Jonas's
like he
option.
can take the time. He can take the
Yeah,
time to find 2 gear checks. Like his gear check twice by a Stavka anywhere.
yeah,
So he just needs to hope that it's something else. He breaks it, and Hermes is the agenda that's in server 1. So
yeah,
I don't think that we like witnessed a huge misplay or anything. I think we just
yeah. No,
witnessed like, yeah, the Stavka threat forces runners into weird spots.
yeah. Yeah, and like these criminal decks are running very greedy with a 1 of mutual favor a lot, and then like a singleton breaker and an Amakua usually, and so that's why like I mean that's also part of
Mhm.
like oh yeah that's why I often prefer the Enigma over the Afshars. It's just that much better against those sort of greedy crim lists. Um,
Did
but
mutual
yeah,
favor get the Kurapira earlier?
yeah, it did.
That might have been the line where I would have diverged as a criminal pilot. I would have just
Hmm.
like drawn a bunch of cards and used the mutual favor to get the last thing because I know the gear checks are going to last into the late mid game.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, you know, I don't know what he had in his hand.
Yeah,
So
no, it's definitely like opening hand was really good, and then like I think whiffed on some of the tools he would have really liked to put
mhm.
the most pressure on. But I also do think like especially this style of op list is tuned to really kind of bully Crim and put them in those sort of hard choices.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
The only other thing worth pointing out about that game, I think, is like with the extract left in our hand, I think we didn't really need to get the Regolith to win the game anymore.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Drawing the
like
hedge
either
fund to
Rashida
me,
extracts.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah,
yeah,
the hedge fund was great. No doubt about that. Um,
yeah.
if you want to use that as an argument for putting a third hedge fund, put that third hedge fund.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me the third hedge fund isn't like it's not a card you want in the mid to late game. It's really there for like your earliest game plays.
Right,
And so
exactly.
because I like to play an earlier game style, like I'm like, oh, I want the hedge fund way more than I want the Regalith, even though I play both. But that was a game where like because we were just so flooded with agendas, we kind of had to play a very aggressive style. Yeah, Jai, if you want to hop on and mulch, I think that'll be a third game for us, and that's probably a good place for us to start thinking about switching over to concluding thoughts and things.
Switch the Afshar now before we forget.
Yes, let's actually do that. -1 Afshar, +1 Enigma.
I think the story of the hedge fund for me is like I brought 3 to 2022 Worlds,
Yeah.
and like right after that, I just realized like I'm discarding hedge fund like every game. What if I cut it? And I forget what exactly I did with the slot like at that time because the deck was so different. But I did that, and then I just kind of never went back. And I was like, like I understand that there's an argument like just because I'm discarding it late game obviously doesn't mean I don't need it in the deck because there's consistency problems. Like you want a smooth early game draw. But like with special offer in the old build and with extracting to Regolith in the new build, I just never really lost a game
Yeah.
because of a lack of hedge fund. And like
Yeah.
it's not that it's not possible, but when you compare to other questions, for example, like before I put the tithe in, there were a lot of games where I
Yeah.
like, drew the Malapert, and I was like, okay, like this is just too bad. I need to put a tithe in.
Yeah.
And that's just like how the probabilities shake out. You just need to feel that sort of thing out, like when constructing a deck. To me.
Yeah. Okay, so this is mulch. We know ahead of time. So I'll be honest, I have not played like mulch got popular right when I stopped playing a ton of standard. I think this is one of the very interesting matchups. I'm definitely actually fairly happy with this hand.
This hand is excellent.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna keep. To me, the biggest question is like, well, actually, I don't even. I think it's just Enigma, Border Control, Regalith.
It's just which ice goes where.
Yeah, I always prefer the Border Control on the remote just because it makes them spend two tools to get there, and we're probably gonna want one Border Control on the remote at some point, and their central pressure, like they have to have a turn. If they have a turn 1 imp, then I'd rather actually cost them the click than the credit, I think. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely icing HQ here because.
Yeah.
Well, this is probably like too elementary to even spend airtime discussing. But
I mean, you don't have to ice HQ in every matchup all the time, right?
No, but knowing that it's mulch, you certainly ice HQ. I think the more interesting question is like,
if you don't know it's mulch, do you ice HQ here? This to me is already an interesting question of do I just let them see the Regalith? But I think they just trash it and they're okay.
Yeah, we want the Regolith.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks to give them 2 cards off of this, but, so it goes. We do want the Regalith. It's going to be a big part of our stabilization here.
I mean, to me, they're going to draw 2 cards. The part that sucks is they can imp us now.
Yeah.
But they only get, 1 imp. Yeah, I mean, that's Netrunner. Sometimes you have to let him in.
Yep.
And sometimes
and actually... Yeah, and the Thimble Rig threat is real here.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, so now we just yeah, I don't feel like there's any need to put anything on the board here. I guess you could make an argument for putting an ice on each R&D, but I don't. I feel
You
like I'd
could,
rather.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, on those luxury cards that I wish could work but never will is having a single wage workers in this list. Would just I don't think it's even easy to use. I think it would mostly be pretty bad, but it would just be like all of my favorite effects in one deck. Uh,
You'd have to make a whole second remote to protect it.
yeah. Yep. Yeah, so Simulchip definitely makes the rig shooter part of this deck a little bit less consistent, to put it gently. Uh, but they also have
Yeah, so
specific ways
that's
they want to
yeah.
spend their Simulchips as well.
That's this is like why it's an interesting matchup against Mulch because they win the late game clock,
Hmm.
right? Especially with 3 labor rights in the deck, you just can't like every rig shot is just buying you time. So it's about sensing like it's about just sensing how much time you have left to win the game.
Yeah,
And what time buys, if you will, like are profitable versus what is just delaying the inevitable.
yeah. Okay, so to me, I'm going Regalith, and then just maybe putting maybe it's put Spin Doctor on the board behind the BC.
Are we
Um,
getting Malapert or are we getting Tithe?
I was thinking getting Malapert, but
I think so too.
yeah,
Um, it defends itself pretty well with the trash cost. Um,
yeah. Like if Jai wants to go and spend 5 credits, I think I'm
yeah,
okay with
right.
that. Uh,
Um,
I was gonna put the Spin
there's putting
Doctor.
spin, there's putting an ice.
Yeah,
We
I
don't,
guess just putting
yeah, we
down the
don't have a
Stavka
shuffle
is
that we want to
okay.
do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I put the Stavka. It's either that or put border control on R&D,
Hmm. I don't know that I
unless
love
you
the.
disagree with where the BC should go.
I don't have another like. I don't know that it's yeah. It's like I don't actually like BC on the remote that much right now. I don't know that I like it on
BC doesn't
R.
go on the remote.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't go on the
I don't
remote.
ever put two BCs together.
I definitely have, but
Um,
I think it's probably a bad habit of mine. I'm not sold about BC on R&D because their R&D pressure is just like the late game. It's not like they're going to be doing something that I'm going to want to imminently end. Um,
yeah, I'm not worried about Conduit now. It's just Hoshiko is on the front side.
mm, okay. I feel like I'd still rather hit them with a Stavka there just to like get the cleaver out of the board out of the way. Um,
Well, but Stavka, I think both of the ice face down are Stavka, and so I think the Stavka long term wants to be on the remote.
yeah, that's fair. Part of me is also just like put Spin Doctor in new remote and make him spend a click, or make them spend a click. Um, but you're right. We don't really want to shuffle back. I don't know. Actually, I think I
I would
might
hang
do.
on to the spin. I, I- do what you want. I think I would put the BC on R&D here.
Okay, I'm gonna go for a Spin Doctor and a new remote for a maximally greedy line. I think. Um,
Okay. I'm just not sure like what you're greeting here.
so the greedy line is actually just scoring the Atlas from hand. I think, and then just resetting it for the future.
Oh, because we have Audacity.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. um, yeah, I actually just forgot about that. When I play Audacity, I feel like I just never use it
Yeah.
except on um except on the final score because I don't want to discard my cards, you know?
Yeah. Now I actually just want to do like Stavka above the law in the remote or something.
I
Or
definitely
actually,
ban the above the law.
yeah, that or actually just say I'll trade in above the law for your cookbook, but I think that's probably bad long term.
We hang on to
Or
the audacity.
yeah, trade the audacity and the atlas for the cookbook, which is probably not a worthwhile
Yeah.
exchange for us. Um,
Yeah, we just have such a good remote, I think, that I just don't think about audacity like in that way.
yeah, yeah. No, I think I very like going this aggressively on audacity is generally a bad decision. And we're sitting on a very healthy credit total. We could even go something like above the law and put 2 ice in the on the remote to really just lock it down. But I don't know that we have 2 ice we actually want to put on the remote here.
I think the Stavka is just good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing I don't like about the Stavka is it doesn't hard end the run. I guess it does. We can trade a simul chip for 2 cleavers. Or like we can trade the agenda for the simul chip and the cleaver.
Oh, it trades for the. I forgot there was simul chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it trades for 2 cleavers.
Yeah.
So like we end the run and we trash the cleaver a second time. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
I think that's
they actually
fine.
have to have a solution for the envelop or the sandstone anyway. And mulch does tend to run quite low to the ground on credits.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
like not it's they may actually just not even have it 2 times anyway.
I wonder what Jai's thinking about.
Yeah.
There's always the line of Stavka, eat Malapert, get spin, trash the agenda, but
Yeah.
I think that's too negative tempo, and
Yeah.
I never end up actually doing it.
Um, DJ Fenris for Los?
It's like that's gain 2 whenever an ice is rezzed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's much worse than Steve.
I'm certainly happier to see it than Steve.
Yeah. Rashida, I actually think I want the above the law probably more than the Rashida here.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think
If we had a seamless, it would
Yeah.
be no question at all, which is
Yeah.
like why I love having multiple seamless. But
Yeah.
like,
So yeah, it's
it's
Stavka on
still
the
better.
remote, and then I'm sorry, yeah, and then border control on R&D here. I think seems fine to me.
Mm-hmm.
Does stink that we have the half run in hand, but hey, we'll just we'll just Malapert tutor for sprint. He says jokingly.
Like we don't even need to do that.
Yeah.
This is not
No.
a board where half rune matters.
Yeah. Okay. That is annoying.
I forgot that Cookbook put a second counter on Botulus.
Yeah. Let's see.
We can
But I mean, part of me says we just res the stop as we were planning to, pop the border control, and get a sandstone after.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 3 credits on the other side of the board.
Yeah.
You could eat the border control and get him a virus and purge and trash 2 programs. But then
Give up the
simul
above
chip.
the law. Yeah. And the simul chip.
It's not a good trade. I'm just saying
Yeah.
to illustrate the lines that I consider.
Yep. No, that's fair. Yeah, and this time it doesn't matter. Like, make them spend everything, and now we'll pop the border control.
No, that's funny.
Hmm?
Lotus is going to gain another 2 credits on this.
Is it? It's the first time each turn, so we're actually okay.
Oh, never mind. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, it's quiet. Like it's almost good for us that nothing got trashed because now the Botulus. Oh no, the Botulus could actually be repositioned here if they really wanted to go hard. Um, they could Botulus the Sandstone to get in, but then they'd be giving
Yeah,
up the Cleaver, the Botulus, and the Simul chip to get 2 points.
yeah.
All right, what do we hit with the price? We hit a Steel Skin, a Strike Fund, a Knob Korea, and a Buffer Drive. Well, those are some good hits.
That's a pretty good price.
Yeah, that's a pretty good price. I
Although the steel skin at the end of the turn is awkward.
Yeah, for sure. I'm probably putting the buffer drive, the 1x buffer drive down because I think you need it to have the late game threat, but maybe I'm thinking
Hmm.
more infinite loo rather than like mulch. But
Um, I think it's the same either way, especially in the early game right now. Buffer drive, you want to see it.
yeah,
There's a second knob, and with cookbook already on the board, you're maybe not thinking you need the knob that bad.
yeah. Jacoby, interesting. Oh, I was like, if we draw a seamless here, that would be sick. But so I think yeah, this is just a score above the law. Like there's some world where you could try and go for more aggressive line or like fancier lines with the extract, but I don't think they're really worth it.
Yeah. So we're discarding half rune. We're getting probably Mavirus is what I would get.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you could make a small argument for going for a spin doctor as well, I think, but I like the Mavirus more.
I don't really think about getting spin unless I'm in like a pinch.
Yeah.
My top candidates are extract and seamless,
Yep.
but in this matchup, obviously.
Yeah. To me, Cookbook
Um,
is the thing I'm most interested in trashing here. Um,
um, how many copies does this deck play
I don't
usually?
know off the top of my head. I know that like the Lu decks tend to run one, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this deck run two. Um, which
Trashing the Steve is sorry, I called it Steve.
if this was
Uh,
Steve, I would probably trash it, right? But because it's not Steve, I don't know that I care.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, just like how many credits is it worth?
Yeah, to
There
me
is the
the
Paladin, right?
yeah, there's also the Paladin there, but to me I'm like
Right, yeah.
the viruses are the econ for this deck, and so that I care
I
about
also
maybe
forgot. I also forgot that Paladin and Lowe's kind of do the same thing, and Cookbook does the unique thing. So yeah,
yeah.
go ahead and kill the Cookbook. I think we're in great shape.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like now I get to ask the fun hard question of do I go for the Atlas push or the Rashida push? And I think it's just Atlas Mavirus in the remote and move on with your life and don't think about it too hard.
I would go with the Rashida.
Okay.
Um, I, I mean, like I said, I really undervalue Atlas counters now.
Hmm.
Actually, I didn't say this, but Malapert makes me not care about Atlas counters. So to
Hmm.
me, that's just negative tempo, and like I just want to draw as many ice and make as many credits as I can right now.
Hmm.
Sorry, what I actually want to do is draw Seamless Launch so that we can Seamless and get an Atlas counter for free.
That's fair. I guess
And
I would
Rashida gets
say
that too.
advancing the Atlas is like drawing a seamless counter in the future as well. But
That's true, but with SDS in the deck, it's possible that Atlas is the second to last score, and
mhm.
well, okay, I lied. Seamless is still good if SDS is your last score, so
Yeah.
I didn't say anything there, but
Um, Enigma Res I think is yeah a yes here.
I agree.
Yeah. Now it's on to opponent to think because they do have access to Buzzsaw in their heap. They could trade the Botulus, which I wouldn't mind trading a Simul chip for a single here. Um,
Knowing that we have him a virus in hand, um, I might do it. because the Stavka is kind of the most likely extract target.
Hmm.
So that's kind of another reason to move the Botulus here. You still lose the click.
Yeah. So you're
But if
just
they like
yeah.
get into HQ and hit them a virus, that's probably the best case for them.
Yeah. And that is in fact what they're going for.
Oh, there was a buzzsaw. I forgot
Yeah.
there was a buzzsaw.
Hey, they hit the exact
Uh,
best line for them.
all right.
I think I'm still looking at. I guess I could see Rashida extracting the Enigma just out to Thimble Rig. Um,
I was considering that too, because it lets us fix the Stavka.
oh, Hordem is a very good draw here as well.
That's a very good draw.
Okay. Uh, yeah, so actually, now I'm definitely thinking extract the Enigma for the Thimble Rig, install the Hordem on server 1, and then Rashida in the remote.
Um, if we do that, then our HQ is gonna get ravaged. So we could put the Hordem on HQ and the Thimble Rig on the remote and reposition them later, and it's also 2 credits better.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess we don't care as much about the Rashida, and they're still trading stuff into the Stavka, so
Right,
yep.
exactly.
Yep, that's a nice little spot. Thimble Rig, server 1, Hordem on HQ, and Rashida in server 1. And yes, we're giving them a Lego draw, but we were going to do that. There's no world where we don't,
I mean,
so
yeah, one does not play around Lago Paranoia Shelter.
yeah.
I have found Thimble Rig to be extremely good in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if that pans out.
Yeah, I guess as long as
Yeah,
the
because
Stavka
like,
is sitting there, this remote is actually just obnoxious to run, unless it's like game winning.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Like I was 100% gonna extract the Stavka until the Botulus went away. So that's kind of there is this tension of like who wants to give up on the Stavka first,
Yeah.
and they gave up first.
Yeah, I was thinking if the Mavirus survived, I might keep the Stavka out, because I can always just spend 3 credits to blow up their rig.
Yeah, no, that's I guess I meant like I don't actually know what I meant. I was gonna say I meant like do them a virus on something and then extract the Stavka later because the
Ah,
Botulus would still be on it.
yeah.
Um,
That's fair.
but like that's just kind of getting ahead of ourselves in like how are we going to use them a virus to begin with? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're having a very that Hordem draw is very very good for us overall. That's like
Yeah.
probably the best ice in the matchup. Uh,
I that was probably the best possible draw.
yeah, yeah, and like I could see one argument, I guess, for potentially using the Audacity early is because Clot is live in this deck, but I think you have other lines against this deck that don't require Audacity at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. To me it's just about throwing away cards. Like it's just negative tempo to me.
Yeah,
And like, you know, I can consider using it in some spots. But there's also just like get him a virus, put it in the remote, protect it. Like
yeah. Am I resting this border control here? I don't know that I usually am, to be honest.
a credit for 2 cards. It depends if you I think if we're resing it, we're using it immediately. So I think we just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could res it, use it immediately, turn it into a sandstone. because we have no other targets we'd want to use this turn.
There's just no reason to do it now.
Yeah. The other option is, I guess we could use it and get the other virus out, which might be nice to have, but
Right, of course, it turns into a virus here. But again, we don't like need the virus right now.
yeah, the virus doesn't do anything for us at this exact moment in time.
The awkward, the reason you want to consider like getting your virus out early is that it's hard to force a mulch runner to run your border control on the turn where it's going to matter.
Yeah.
So if you res, for example, you could even res the border control, let them break it and not use it, and the thimble rig turns into the border control like when it matters.
Yeah.
So that's a consideration, but
yeah.
I think no res is fine here.
Yeah. Second cookbook came down. Oh well. We did our best. It cost
Fine.
one fermenter token that would have gotten my virus purged anyway, but you know, that's post hoc thinking or whatever. Not post hoc, but
I mean, everything in this matchup is buying time.
Yeah.
We bought like 4 turns of no cookbook.
I'm probably shuffling here because runner accessed, and I probably do actually. I probably do want to draw an agenda.
You have an agenda.
That's fair. Swap Thimble Rig with the Whoredom.
I would have swapped it with the Stavka first, but...
Oh, that's fair.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Well, this is a pretty darn good draw.
Yeah.
Do we put the envelopment on the board? Yeah, probably, right?
Do we need to?
The
remote costs 4 plus 5 credits, and it's 9 credits and simul chipping.
Yeah.
Yeah, the runner could get in.
I wasn't thinking envelopment on server 1. I was thinking on the central.
Which central?
Probably
I don't think
HQ,
we're worried about centrals.
But you're right. I don't think we are.
Like Imp HQ would be pretty annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess to me, I'm like, I don't have things I really want to do with my... Like, I actually don't really want to draw here either. So that's why I'm like, oh, if I can just, like, envelopment HQ, I don't actually have to res it. I just have the option to res it. Install the Atlas and, like, click for a credit is, like, okay-ish to me in terms of what I can get out of this turn. Though, also putting the Spin Doctor down to get the half run available is maybe a thought.
There's no... Yeah, I guess if the runner thinks every face-down card is a Stavka, yeah, so, I mean, the runner thinks every face-down card is a Stavka, but the runner also doesn't know that we have half rune in archives. So,
yeah.
To me, that's kind of a wash. It's just like, do we want to draw cards with spin right now?
Yeah, I guess the reason...
I
don't think we want to...
I don't hate the line you said originally. Atlas Envelopment HQ credit. Yeah, I do like icing HQ again. Or we could just put spin, draw 2, and make a decision.
Yeah,
I think they're both fine.
I think probably spin to draw 2 here is slightly better than clicking for a credit. I don't think it's, like, actually massively better, but it's probably, like, there's good stuff we can draw here. Like, the SF is probably slightly better than the Atlas here. Actually, is it? I feel like with Seamless, I actually I like the Atlas more.
It could go either way. we're not exactly like rig shooting them,
Yeah.
so the Aziev is worse there. But the thing that it does do is it eats Stavka and turns it into Mavirus.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I get to me like
Like, which, yeah,
Stavka's still doing some work, even as is right now
right,
until they find
right.
their mimic. So like I'm not torn up. Oh, okay. I forgot this deck was on Conduit. I thought most people had just decided to stop playing to win. So uh,
Mulch typically plays Conduit. We talked about this.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, yeah. The Stavka like is still a gear check or trades for the Samel chip, which is why um I think like if we had another face down Stavka, which the runner doesn't know, but if we did, then eating the first one to get him a virus would be better because Movirus stops you from playing around half rune with a Botulus.
Uh, I actually. Oh yeah, yeah. Because you're resing you're doing all that on approach rather than during the encounter.
Hmm.
Um,
Actually,
Actually, no. The runners should have a window to do that. They'll always have a window to beat it.
uh,
Because
oh, with Simul chip, yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking about just like installing a Botulus.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we need to.
Uh,
Right, you're right. Right, we need to
yeah,
trade for the Simul chip first for that to be good, and in order
yeah.
to trade for the Simul chip, like we need that.
Okay, this is just res border control. Get them a virus, I think.
I think I agree.
Though I honestly might let them see two cards next turn, or like on their last click here. I guess there's
Mm,
a world where we could get the sandstone, but I think virus is just more robust here.
I could go either way. We're pretty poor if we score the Atlas, and we're not. I guess we can score the Atlas without a counter using the Seamless and put the Rashida. I'm
Yeah,
concerned about having enough money to put this envelopment on R&D and res it. Um, and also play the remote game that we want to play.
yeah. I think to me it's the. Oh wait, no, we definitely get them a virus, and I don't think we purge here because then we can on our turn purge with them a virus, get the Tucana. Oh, I guess we don't have our
Oh
other
yeah,
envelopment in the deck, but
we could, sure, but we could like get Sandstone.
yeah, we could get the
Forgot.
sandstone then.
I
Yes.
honestly forgot we had Tucana because we haven't used it yet,
I know
like
we've
any
been
of these
missing it
games.
the whole series, but it's just a central part of the deck.
No,
And
it's
then
a
we can
good
actually
point.
then we get to do the nice play of then just putting
Yeah.
the Rashida in the remote at the end there as well.
Um, there's another cool skateboard trick we can do, which gets both Rashida in the remote and an Atlas counter.
Okay.
Do you know how it goes?
No.
You seamless advance, score, trigger your Malapert, get something, trigger your Tucana, get Stavka, eat the Malapert, get Rashida.
Ah.
Actually, that doesn't work because we have to use Ob on our turn to get the Tucana. So forget I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
But that's one of the skateboard tricks with Stavka you can do that I mentioned earlier. Tucana, you already have to have Tucana. So
Yeah. Chris saying Mulch is unlucky to not see Knob yet. I mean, I'd argue them having an installed Knob would actually be them further back in their board state rather than further ahead because they'd be down a decent number of credits. And they're also, I think, only running two. They saw one off of a price and they had to take the buffer drive, which is definitely unfortunate for them. But
yeah, I
um,
mean That's the price of price.
Yeah.
Sometimes this kind of thing happens.
I
And
mean,
like you can't
yeah.
play 3 of every card.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure that that was even wrong, but I haven't played enough mulch to say. Like my sense is buffer
I
drive is
think
pretty important to your late game, especially if you're
I
going to go
agree.
for DJ Los. Like I think if you go DJ Steve, maybe you can find some way to make it work, but
No, I think the buffer drive is correct. And like, even if Knob was on the board, like say one of the runner's cards is Knob and
oh, this I
they
don't
install it
like, Jai.
with him of installing this into a virus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, if there was a Knob on the board, we'd still be fine
Yeah.
because we just have the tools to kind of like something and make the Knob not so good.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're seeing my thimble rig swap being a big mistake because it's like now very annoying to get the Stavka to a useful position. Um,
Right. Yeah. Putting Stavka like outside is always the first thing I want to do.
yeah.
Um, if we're
Part of me wants to just leave this as is.
at least swap with the envelopment,
Okay, that's fair.
unless you're
Because
hoping
then,
for like a cheese kill into Bankar, but
yeah.
we're not
We're
hoping for
not.
that.
No. Okay, so I think even with this Ozef draw, our plan doesn't really change.
No. What ice are we getting with Tucana?
In Sandstone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then Seamless, Advance. And we haven't talked about the Malapert trigger here. I could go a couple of ways on this, to be honest.
What are you
Uh,
thinking?
so part of me is just like extract stabilizes our econ, even if they go after the Rashida here.
Mm-hmm.
But seamless launch is also a really nice. Well, it's actually not even that good of a threat for us, really. Um, maybe even just a Trojan horse, funnily enough, could do something just to go after the simul chip.
I
Um,
don't think it trashes hardware.
oh, you're right. It doesn't. Okay, so never mind then. Yeah, I mean,
I
to
think
me,
it's
this.
extract.
Yeah, I was like, what else would I want? But it really is like extract. I could. Yeah, there's nothing with the envelopments. Yeah, envelopment is like also a card I would want, but I don't really want it in this situation. Okay, so then it's just Rashida and the remote here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also an argument for like actually extract the Malapert to get a Rashida in.
We do that
Um,
if they trash this Rashida.
yeah.
We could have also shuffled the virus back and got that out, but I don't think we're rich enough for that.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit short. It was definitely on my mind of like, oh yeah, maybe I should purge them a virus, then shuffle, and then score. But I think we'll still be able to shuffle a virus and the spin doctor back in here. We don't have anything else we particularly need to spin back here. Um,
We can do it later. It's just a question of like having access to it.
yeah,
Because we're out of border controls. We don't have a Stavka face down that can eat something and make him a virus.
I think don't we still have one border control?
I meant we're out of border controls on the board.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I'm not looking at audacitying out the Ozef for a couple of reasons, including a clot in the bin. But I also don't think it's super needed. Like this remote is non-trivial for the runner to get through right now. Um,
Um, I think
but
that going like install advanced action is something we can start thinking about doing in order
yeah,
to bait it out. Um, Certainly, if you had two Audacities in the deck, then Audacity on top of Malapert and getting the next Audacity is really good.
yeah,
Um, the other thing I wanted to respond to is like, why would you get Hedge Fund when you could get Extract? Because Extract turns the Malapert into Rashida
yeah.
or Spin. Like, so Extract is just always better than Hedge Fund to
Yeah,
get.
I think you should basically never grab hedge fund unless you've used up all three extracts and you need the 4 credits for a specific thing.
Right.
Um, yeah, I guess to me, probably if the Rashida doesn't pop anything particularly interesting, the turn I'm thinking about is shuffling. Like, let's say it just like if it draws like blank cards or agendas, I'm kind of leaning towards Spin Doctor back a Mavirus and a either the spin like what the other card you shuffle back. I'm not sure yet. Then extracting the Stavka for a Mavirus and then installing an envelopment on server one. Um,
That's pretty good. I think the shuffle is Mavirus Spin.
yeah,
Because if we lose the third spin, it's sad.
yeah. And Ian, we are not playing hostile in this version of the deck. Um, we're playing
Yeah,
SDS instead.
right.
So
If we had if we had SDS Seamless in our hand, then I would consider us to be on game point, and then I would not shuffle a spin. But I don't think we're on game point yet, so um, I'm playing a shuffle spin game.
mhm.
I hope this is the kind of like level of strategic analysis people are here for.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know. I
I
really
mean,
enjoy
like,
it, but
yeah, no, like what you shuffle with spin is really like you're thinking about the matchup, right? Like the matchup is about spamming Mavirus and gear checking them out of stuff
yeah,
and making their simulchips like weird and awkward. Um,
yeah. I also
and
love that we
also
started
it's
this.
about
Oh,
it's also about, like I mentioned earlier, like it's about thinking how much time it's going to take to win the game and like thinking about what tool you need. And in this case, that tool is Spin Doctor.
yeah. Um, I also love that we go, oh, Ob's not that hard to play, and then we spend, a good 15 minutes on half of our turns discussing possible
Oh,
lines.
but a lot of these lines that I'm saying, I guess I should be more clear. Like a lot of the lines that I've been saying out loud, like are things that I'm not considering in this board state.
Hmm.
Like in this board state, I'm like, we have 6 credits. We don't have enough money to resolve our shit. I'm definitely getting extract. Like that's kind of a snap decision.
Yeah.
Um, and like shuffling Mavirus Spin Doctor is also kind of a snap decision. So I'm just kind of like some of the things here are snap decisions for me, and some of them are like, oh, I actually need to think about like which line to take.
Yeah, so to me, the only reason to not shuffle back Spin Doctor is 'cause I'm like, I just actually need the second Mavirus. Um, but I think you know, this is a little bit of rust from my end where, yeah, you actually just want the second Spin Doctor way more than you want the virus. I think, though, Jai has decided by installing this Audrey, to me, that's saying that Jai is thinking that they actually can't just tunnel R&D, which to me, I think is their strongest line. Um,
It is the strongest line here. Oh,
I think we can res the Hordem here. I think we kind of have to be honest.
we have, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Los is doing a little bit of work here, amusingly, for all the like I said this should
No,
be
I think it
Steve,
was.
but
I think it was actually kind of a smart decision because Steve, like Ob is Ob especially is good at kind of punishing Steve. Like we'd read
Mhm.
that envelopment and Steve would be blank, whereas Los has been doing work.
Yeah, or like yeah, a Takana trigger to fetch a Winchester just blanks Steve in most cases.
Right. It's actually kind of clever play. I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. Okay, and here comes the Sandstone. It's going to see two cards. It's not cheap to break. Um, and again, we're going to be grabbing. We'll definitely want to grab the Mavirus here. Um, so we'll be that'll be very good for us. Okay, throwing two cards out to Audrey to break this is probably pretty reasonable.
Hmm.
It probably it's not a line I was thinking of, but I guess it does make sense.
You
I
threw
don't
out
mind.
Mimic, which is worth remembering.
Yep. Yeah, that does make me a little bit sad that like the Stavka throwaway is 100% like the best one to do here. I guess one question is actually, do we shuffle the Spin Doctor before we fire the Rashida here?
Um, yeah, that's probably pretty good.
Yeah, I think it is because if we can draw it, it gives us options, right? Thimble rig swaps. I think I don't want. I want the thimble. I don't because we're gonna planning to trash the Savka. I don't really want to move it anywhere.
Um,
Um,
you could move. You could put the thimble rig where the Stavka is, and at least keep an ice.
well, so what my thinking is right now, right? If
Hmm.
Rashida fires and sees nothing, right? It's extract the
Sure,
Stavka for the Mavirus and then put the envelopment on server one.
I see.
So it's saving me a credit to do that swap.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking if you weren't going to install ice there, but if you
Yeah.
are, I think that's fine.
No search. Yep. Okay. Border control feels like a decent hit here. Is it a hit that makes me want to reevaluate the rest of the line, though? I don't. I mean, I'm just thinking at yeah, extract, install the. I mean, we actually could install the Stavka instead of the envelopment to save a credit, and then
Um, so worth noting is we drew SDS and we don't have seamless, so we need to think about like, are we going to score that?
yeah, my sense was probably not. So I'm trying. You're on two seamlesses? I just like I don't love the like install advanced SDS play the extract.
I have three in this list.
Yeah, yeah. So we have two left, right? Um,
Oh, sorry, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Another uh another like maybe bone I wanted to pick is like maybe we're extracting the Malapert instead of extracting Stavka.
Oh, okay,
Because I wanted to I was kind of banking on having like that spin doctor on demand.
okay.
And also, since we drew a Stavka, we can use that to make him a virus.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Okay, so what's the line you're thinking of then? Just for the sake of time, I'm happy to go with that.
Uh extract the Malapert into spin.
Okay. New remote for the spin.
Yeah.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
Um what comes next I think is like depends on what we're gonna install in the remote here.
Yeah, I guess we
Um,
do at some point actually thread install advance and audacity the SDS, but um,
um, yeah. So we could set up to do that next turn. We definitely want Stavka installed
yeah,
to make that happen. Um, Botulus can get around half rune, like, I mean, sorry, Simulchip Botulus can get around half rune no matter what.
yeah,
So I'm not worried about the half rune here.
yep,
Um, oh, we drew another extract. That's pretty good. So next turn
yes,
we
we
can
did.
plan to extract, install advance.
Yep. So we
Um,
can actually load up on ice on server one this turn to some extent.
mhm. um, we could conceivably install Aziev. I
Yeah,
mean, I just don't like installing nothing. That's the thing.
yeah, fair.
Um,
Yeah, I do.
yeah,
I guess install Azef, install Stavka protecting server one seems fine.
yeah, I think I like that. And discard. Well, I don't
The
want to discard
other,
two agendas because then we're not shuffling anything.
yeah, but
Um,
it also might be probably. So then it's like an envelopment in the Trojan horse. I think. Am I off by a card?
well, I think we need to think about whether the runner's going to attack HQ.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, and I, yeah, since we have the second extract, we do have the money to res the envelopment on HQ. So I think we're probably safe to keep some agendas.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
might
that's
still
fair.
discard one of them
Yep.
because we've just established we're not shuffling the half rune. So only one of the spin doctor's shuffles is really spoken for.
Yep. And you're just saying it's on the second
Although,
on the Mavirus, I would
yeah,
assume. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'd
Yeah.
like to
Okay.
shuffle the seamless, but that's kind of a luxury.
Yeah. So to me, the ditches here are probably Trojan Horse, the Oak Town, and the Envelopment.
I am inclined to
Could be
agree.
Audacity, but I think the Audacity. No, the Audacity is
No,
important for our scoring
yeah,
plan.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. Let's not have
The
a.
audacity is a seamless.
Yeah,
We're
the
not
Audacity
discarding
is just a
seamless.
seamless here.
And if we draw actual seamless, then we can go seamless, score the ASF, and put the next ASF, which is better than the SDS.
Yeah. So if they
Yeah, and
run,
Trojan Horse doesn't do anything on this board.
yeah, if they run the remote here, we probably Stavka the Stavka to get a Mavirus just to make their life annoying. I think that actually maybe we
Well,
did.
let's think
I don't know
about
that
it.
we do because they have to get well. They could get mimic. They can get mimic out after either way, right?
So if we Stavka the Stavka, then they can simulchip Botulus onto the new Stavka, break that Stavka, holding priority,
Mm-hmm.
and then break the remaining stuff, uh, just with credits,
Yeah.
um, even without Audrey. So eating the Stavka, like the Stavka is another gear check here because
Yeah.
of that mimic trash. Um,
Yeah. Oh, is it actually Spin Doctor for the half one we said we weren't going to use? Probably not. Because it's like, oh yeah, we could eat the sandstone, and then we just have a double Stavka Horde remote, which is like ultimately a gear check on their pretty limited simul chips. Um,
what are you gonna do with the Hafren?
uh, Sell it for nothing next turn would be very sad. Um, yeah, I mean, it would like
I
it would.
mean, what are you like? What
Yeah,
are you gonna prevent them from breaking with the Hafren?
I guess with Audrey, but they don't have the counter, right?
Yeah, I don't think the Hafren. Like, I could conceivably see like maybe they like Botulus the Stavka, pay 5 to break the Hordem, and then we like get out Hafren and point at their cleaver so they
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
break Sandstone. But like I would only think about that kind of thing like on game point.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the one concern I have now actually about this, the line we ended up going, is we don't have the Mavirus out, so we actually are a bit vulnerable to just like conduit deep dig on R&D. I guess conversely, we know where most of the points are right now. Um, right? We've got like 8. Yeah, we've got there's like one SDS, one OZF, and one Atlas
We
left.
know where 15 points are.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah. I mean,
yeah. So there's technically enough points in R&D to win, but not much more. Oh wow, buffer drive removed from the game to put a simul chip back on top of the stack. Yeah,
seems
Jai's.
smart.
Yeah, no, it's a good play. Yeah, it's just saying,
Because,
yeah,
yeah,
there's
like,
no late game here for this Hoshiko.
right, right. And we were just talking about like lines on the remote that work because there is only one simul chip.
Yeah,
Um, and I think the runner conceivably thinks that server one is game point, which it isn't.
yeah,
But like installing OZF and keeping OZF SDS is kind of a nice like hedge depending on whether or not they get in.
yeah. I feel like if they run like and make it all the way through, which I'm assuming they can at this point, I'm almost tempted to do like shuffle back the envelopment to get that on the Tucana fire. Um,
You have enough credits for that?
yes, because we would be giving up the HQ potentially there, but we'd have some. Yeah, we wouldn't quite, but okay. I think this is Stavka Res trashing the Stavka for a virus.
Hold on. We were just talking about why the innermost Stavka is still useful
Good.
as
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it still trades for a simul chip. And that's still true even though there are two simul chips.
Yep.
So like they get in, but they spend both simul chips.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
That's
just
fair.
that there's nothing else to eat that's really good.
Yeah, I guess we could eat. Yeah, it's like because eating the virus is good. Eating the Azef, I guess, is an option. Um,
Interesting. Just to move it to archives. I mean,
no,
I'm not
because
worried
then they
about
just
saving it
jack
too
out
much.
afterwards,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah, yeah,
I would rather feed them 2 points to force them through the other 3 ice.
yeah. No, it's like I
Um,
wish the horde. Man, yeah, having a board like I would love to just trash a border control somewhere else on the board this turn, just to get the
yeah.
virus out.
Chris points out we don't need to eat anything. Um,
Yeah, that's true too. If we don't
yeah,
eat
like
something
the
though,
strength.
then they can
Yeah.
simul chip any one program and get the mimic out, and that solves both
Oh, yeah,
Stavkas, right?
that's true. Um, we could eat the thimble rig. We haven't really done anything with it in a while.
Yeah,
It turns into tithe.
yeah, and even just
Um,
a tithe on R&D seems fine. Um,
yeah. The tithe wants to be on R&D.
yeah, yeah. I think I like that the most. Yeah, because this is the most challenging board state
Yeah,
we can present the runner right now, I think.
yeah. Yeah. I was like kind of mad about it because I was imagining the tithe on the remote, but yeah, like R&D is where that wants to go.
Yeah.
That feels really good.
Yeah, this is now like a lot of different challenges the runner has to answer at once.
Hmm.
Um,
It's also kind of nice on this board that we don't have to worry about like our ob being overcommitted.
mhm.
Like there's no res development we need to protect. Um, there's no
Yeah,
virus that we wanted to get value out of.
there is some danger here of like if they actually just last click run HQ, we go to 0, I think. Maybe we don't.
I would just let him in. There's no imp. I guess there is there an imp in the trash? I don't
That's a
think
great
there's an imp in
question.
the trash.
There does not seem to be, no.
Yeah, I just let him in
Yeah.
because we
Yeah,
need the tempo to play the extract.
yeah.
This is like a great illustration of why you think about cutting the half rune, because like
Yeah.
it's just not good in some matchups. And if you think about your metagame and you're like, the people in my metagame, I'll play mulch or whatever, like
Yeah.
then you want to get these value trashes with Stavka, and like the strength is still relevant because, like you said, like it prevents the mimic play. But
Oh, did they start the turn
they
with a
pop it.
fermenter pop? I missed that. Yeah,
I
they
was
did. Okay.
just about to ask the same question.
Yeah. But this is still good. This
We
means
seem
we
to be
get
on the
two.
yeah.
We get 2 chips out of this, so that's great.
Yeah. Trading for 2 chips is really good. We seem to be on the same wavelength a lot. We'll see if that continues to hold true after we're not playing my deck anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of money from them.
Did they pay for both with the regular breakers?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, because they had
Okay,
no
okay.
Audrey counters.
Okay, yeah, this is extremely good for us. Okay, now the mimic.
Yep. Okay, so my question here is, before access, do we want any of these ice off the Tucana trigger?
Right.
Because it's like, oh yeah, we could put the border control on HQ. Maybe that's where we want that to be.
How many sandstones are left in the deck?
Uh, one. Yeah, one sandstone left in the
One.
deck.
So that's cheaper than resing envelopment on HQ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think I
and
like that.
okay, yeah, I think that's
I think I
fine.
like that.
Yep.
Are you gonna trash the envelopment or keep it?
Let me think. Probably trash it. Is that right? I think I might.
I don't know.
Uh, I think to me, going down to 4 credits is fine. Um, because our turn is still extract, install, advance.
We could go down to 3 credits and have the same turn. Oh, if we're yeah, last click. Right, if we're jamming the SDS, then we can leave open HQ next turn. I see what you're saying.
Oh no, I was actually still thinking putting the sandstone on HQ, but
Oh, I was thinking of getting him a virus with the BC.
oh, wait. So where were you thinking of lining things up?
The
BC
BC
on
still goes on
HQ.
HQ.
Okay, and
It's
you
just
trashed.
that if they attack HQ,
Yeah,
can
yeah,
you get him a virus out of it for your trouble?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
maybe
that would.
trashing the envelopment is right.
Okay, so yeah, it's gonna be. Okay, so in that case, it's shuffle the spin doctor because we need to get the BC in the deck. So it's BC Oaktown go in the deck. And then if they run HQ, oh no, we can't. We've already opt this turn.
Yeah, we
But we don't
can.
need them. We
It's
don't
too
need them a
common. It's
virus
not
last
up.
click here though.
We're not like, yeah. If they run HQ, like, yeah. If they run HQ, click 4, like that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, my snap, like, if this was me, I think I would just be throwing the sandstone on HQ, I think, here,
Oh, instead of a BC.
instead of a BC.
That's fine too. That's fine too.
But, yeah, because I'd rather save the Spin Doctor to have other options.
I think saving the Spin Doctor is valuable. I had forgotten that we needed to shuffle a BC to get one.
Yeah.
This is like when it was our turn and we were talking about putting Asief in the remote, like this is like the best possible scenario I was thinking of. Like they spend all of their resources to come and get it. They get up to
Yeah.
4 points. and it lets us jam next turn.
Ian
So we
saying, "Oh,
have
Winchester
the
probably better." Yeah, probably.
uh, yeah, Winchester wanted to
Winchester
go
was
there.
definitely better there.
Forgot we had Winchester, honestly. I'm not used to playing
Yep,
with that card.
we haven't used it in a couple games, so yes, but Winchester is definitely better.
We could
It's
have
one
trashed
more.
the envelopment.
Yeah,
Did you mean to trash the envelopment with this
I
blue
did.
stone?
I did not. Um,
I think if you get the Winchester, then you do trash the envelopment.
yeah, yeah, that yeah. If we do the Winchester, uh, our hand's not that far off from that Jai, to be honest. um,
So the play here, I think we extract the inner Stavka and get Mavirus, and that lets us Mavirus for half rune
oh
on
wow.
approach to the outer Stavka,
Yeah, yeah,
purge the
yeah.
Botulus, and point at the Mimic.
Yep. And then we can just trash all their stuff. Yeah, very nice.
Well, I mean, the Mavirus is face up, so they kind of, the threat is on the board.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's like, yeah, the point is that like they're suddenly double gear checked, despite getting in the remote just now,
Yeah.
and not even just like single gear checked. We of course have to shuffle back the half rune, which is relevant now.
Oh.
So saving the Spin Doctor was nice.
Yeah. There we do also potentially lose on some trigger on the like there's a we might just lose here as well on 3 accesses. And this is the cost we spent by getting the Tithe rather than getting a virus. But we survive. Oh, Audacity the for the win here. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
Well, that's I
Oh
always
wow,
forget that that is a lot. Like literally, I have probably missed almost double-digit wins with that line.
that's pretty
Oh,
funny.
Lago does actually draw them out of it. Wait, that's really funny.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, logo. Okay, so something awkward happened here, which is that we lost the Mavirus, and our spin
Oh,
shuffle's now overloaded. So we don't
yeah,
have the
yeah,
Mavirus for half rune play. Um,
yeah,
because we also need to shuffle back 2 points.
yep,
We could extract for another Spin Doctor, but
yep,
that's the extract we're planning on using for the play. So let's see what
yeah.
we draw.
That's not useful.
Doesn't do anything.
Yeah, so we
Um,
could.
so let's think about. Hold on. Um,
Oh wait, they did trash the Lego, so never mind. We just win. That's okay.
wait, they fed Lego to Paladin.
Yeah,
Okay, they don't want to do that.
yeah. Let's talk about what the you know what. Okay, here's what we'll we'll part of me is like, oh, we should just get the win, and part of me is like, let's play out as if they didn't make that mistake and they instead trashed like DJ Steve or something, or DJ Los, right? Which I think
We've
is
both
just
called it Steve now.
yeah, yeah. Because I think it's more interesting to play. Like we can say, okay, check mark, we win the game. Let's move
Right.
on and play out. Think about what the line is where our opponent doesn't make a small mistake. Um,
Let's
part of
let's
part
give
of
the take back then.
yeah. Um, uh, Okay, you know what? I'm talking. Okay, let's just, because the stream has been going for 3.5 hours.
Okay.
Let's uh let's just do the win. Um, and no, it's
Can you now
always
talk
lethal
about
because
the
they're
win?
on one card there, Kevin.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. Say they eat the Los instead. I was gonna say, so,
Oh, Steelskin Audrey
um,
lives. Oh, that's a fair point, actually. I do think all the Steelskins were long gone, but you're
oh,
right.
geez, yeah. I forgot to think about that.
Yeah, I did as
To
well.
our embarrassment.
Yeah. So now we look
Um,
like the fools.
okay. Uh, Eating the Lago, like, I could see that being like a world's top cut play where like you're just bluffing the steel skin and hoping that because like if you go well yeah if you put you're in an awkward spot where you have to win with SDS, so if you put the Azief and you go install advanced action, like you don't want to even do that much in order to call the bluff, something like that. Anyways,
Yeah.
um so let's talk about how we need to shuffle the Oaktown, and we pretty much need to extract something into Mavirus. Um,
Yeah. I mean, part of me is
and we need
saying,
to
you know
install
what?
advance.
So what I'm thinking actually is shovel back Oaktown, shuffle back Mavirus, Stavka, extract the Stavka for the Mavirus, install advance, because that lose
Hmm.
to actually get into the remote there. Dry needs to get 4 credits to beat Hordem, 5 credits to beat, or like a lot of credits to beat
Oh
Sandstone,
yeah,
and uh,
and
and so
still
that
2 credits to break the Stavka with Mimic.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I think yeah, it just wins on credits. You're right about
yeah,
that.
I think it just actually wins on credits. Um, I guess technically you only need the 4 credits on the Hordem, and to break the Sandstone, you can let the inner Stavka fire. Um,
That's the one you're extracting for
yeah, because a
the
single
Mavirus.
botchless, you want them to pay the 1 for the Stavka. Like credits just matter here. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, I don't think this deck has enough burst to get out of that. And if they do, then they got us, right. Like I'm kind of okay with
Yeah.
sometimes getting got there. Um, and HQ I think ends up being safe there as well because we actually can res the envelopment and still win. I think. Um, yeah, because we'll be
Yeah, since we
on.
extracted, we have money.
Yeah. Um,
Ian points out in chat that the third Mavirus would have been really good in this game.
yeah,
We
it
were
definitely would have.
Yeah.
Um,
Our resources were stretched because we had to manage our Movirus shuffles.
yeah. Yeah, so it's like to me this is like an example of like, oh, if you could swap out the half run for the third Mavirus and a 1 influence upgrade to one of your ice, like you would do that really easily. So
Well, the reason we wanted to get Movirus without having to shuffle was so that we could also shuffle the half rune.
yeah.
So, like, this is in a world where they have more credits. The Movirus half rune play is what we play to, and we need the extra shuffle slot. So we
Yeah.
need the half rune, and we're probably trading the Thimble Rig um, for the third Movirus, because the Thimble
Hmm.
Rig didn't do a lot this game. The
Yeah.
Sprint was great this game. Uh,
Sprint would have been great this game. It was not great,
was
but
it
it
this
would have
game?
been great. Last
Oh,
game,
it
it
was
was our
last
game
game.
against
It was
Jonas
last
that
game.
was
It was
great.
last game. Yeah, yeah.
I Augustus saying I think the runner's best line is just YOLOing R&D. I actually think the runner basically can't YOLO R&D if we get them a virus down, because they just can't really get through a sandstone. I guess no, they could. Yeah, because they like let's say they go draw to just like go power through with Audrey. We just purge when they approach the sandstone. um, and they'll be
Yeah,
lacking in
yeah,
credits.
yeah. Having them a virus on the board forces them to. Yeah, it just blanks Audrey for a whole turn.
Yeah, and install advance was winning for us, Jai, because we had an audacity in hand, so that effectively is a seamless. Because then next turn we just go advance, advance, audacity. Um, but yeah, we also we did also technically get a little bit unlucky in that there's two seamlesses left in this deck. Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
but
life. We
that's
searched for
life. Yeah,
we
no, we
searched for
got a lot of
extract
good
instead of
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like we could have got it with Malapert, and we
yeah,
would have been broke.
yep, yeah. No, extract is just such an important card for this deck. I think it's really good.
Hmm.
Um, we only
I
this
think
was yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
in answer to Ian's point about the third Mavirus, like I think Thimble Rig is the only conceivable cut for it. Um, and I think this illustrates like why it feels like a luxury to me to have the third Mavirus, because the Thimble Rig does like other things, and it wasn't great in this game, but there have been games that it's won like kind of single-handedly. So yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah, and at the end of the day, like it came down to us winning on credits, and like it's not like I hate to use the word hybrid, but like we do kind of like have a hybrid win condition of like taxing out the simul chips, and at the end of the day, we won on credits,
yeah,
despite kind of running out of spin doctor shuffles from a virus. So that's that's what I mean when I say it feels like a luxury to me. Um,
yeah.
and
To
like
me,
certainly you can play it, but like your deck, you're cutting a toolbox thing from your deck.
from my perspective, Thimble Rig doesn't do enough. Uh, free yeah, I think there's like a couple of different luxury choices made in this deck, and I don't I'm not trying. I don't want to convince you to change it. I think this deck is actually pretty well optimized. But to me, the third seamless definitely feels a little bit does feel like more of a luxury to me than a third Mavirus, especially if I know I'm going into a meta with a lot of mulch players. Um, and
Yeah, I
gives
mean,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. The third seamless is like also a luxury, but it feels more necessary like in other matchups, I guess.
yeah,
You can certainly cut the third seamless.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, this
it's
is
just
this game is a little bit of my argument of actually why I like the Managarm even without Forma Carry is because it gives that end game of virus purge. Like it says, not only do you have to have breakers and answers to everything, but you also need to have the clicks or credits to get through. Um, but you know what? Rather than leading us onto a big tangent on my
yeah.
weird obsession of one good card with it out of its supporting cards, um, let's wrap this one up. I want to say thank you,
Yeah,
Ben, for
yeah.
coming on. Thank you to Jai,
Thank you for having me.
Jonas, and Daria for coming on and being some sparring
Hmm.
partners. We don't have a next session scheduled, but we will come back to talk about more obs and maybe some of the other obs that people have been playing, like the Facet ob, Calicana Zoo, maybe even some of the ob I've been playing a little bit. And I
I
hope you all
mean, yeah,
enjoyed.
we can play a one Skunkworks build. Like,
Yeah, yeah, we can play one Skunkwork
yeah,
with and without former carry at some point.
yeah. I wanted to say, like, the third seamless, like what it does is it lets you like jam an SDS when it's not game point, like for your first or second agenda. And it just can kind of like crack the game open by like trashing a Kurpir at the right time. Because you just naturally draw your seamless. But I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, like that is the luxury spend in this influence package.
yeah.
Anyways, yes, I feel like definitely like illustrated a lot about this build. And I'm happy to move on to I'm looking forward, in fact, to moving on to other builds, like the next installation of the series.
Cool. Well, with that said, thank you, Ben, once again, and thank
Thank
you
you,
everyone
Jed.
for tuning in. And I'll see y'all next week.
Bye.